It's bigger than you. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than all of us.
Sir, you're charged with especially aggravated kidnapping. You're also charged with aggravated assault, and you're charged with theft of a firearm worth less than $2,500.
You're talking about stuff that is not relevant.
Hello and welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict, and boy, do I have a case for you today.
Why is the dog chewing on this guy?
I think they have got the wrong guy there.
Got the wrong guy, and the dog was biting him.
He roughened him up quite a bit. There's a lawsuit.
This police unit is trying to box him in, but instead he just crashes into the tree, and away he goes. But let me widen out. I don't know how far this will take him. Yeah, he's basically cornered. Wow, look at this. Off the road and onto the freeway. Oh my gosh. So he is on the freeway, going wrong side of the road here on the 91 freeway, going eastbound in the westbound lane. This car is smoking. I pray to God that the vehicles that are coming in his direction see this car coming at them and they're able to stop before we see a collision.
Good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict. It's great to have you here. Happy Podcast Thursday. I'm trying to figure out who won the internet. I know Slotilica. I know you're amongst the mix, but I also saw some re-gifting discussion going on. So before I penalize, I just need to know, is it the right person? I'm gonna say yes. Slotilica, congratulations, you're the internet owner today. You, my friend, are responsible for everything IP related worldwide. As a punishment, apparently nobody wants it. She says, yes, I saw you saying, is anybody not one that wants it? And there's like crickets. Everyone's like, do you guys hear anything? I didn't hear anything. Nope. So, congratulations, Slotilica, or good riddance, one of the two. You are responsible for everything IP related worldwide. It's a small thing that you can do for all of us, and we definitely appreciate you for it. All right, excited for today. It's a good day. If you guys missed, we were on Courtroom Confidential last night with Josh Ritter. It was a load of fun. Love to hang out with him and his crew. His wife, got to see his wife, his kid after the live stream, talked a little bit. Kai is amazing. Josh is amazing. Everybody. Just a fun group to hang out with. If you haven't watched it, please go back and watch that. It was a lot of fun to talk about the Linda Stermer case with him. And, man, time flies when you're having fun, too. So it's all good. All right, let's see. Where are we? Oh, we've got a couple messages I have to recognize. Look at this. Tony Zamora. Tony, my friend, thank you. Good morning. Good job last night. Best 5 months ever, says Tony. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate your help. Cindy Lou, member for 22 months. OG. There we go. OG. I was going to say, but also welcome. Susan Basterk, member for 15 months, says, wow, where does the time go? It flies. I tell you, time flies. You know what I did this morning? Before we sing happy birthday? I did manly things. First, I went and helped my neighbor because he was having trouble with his TV remote, and he knocked on the door. I was still in bed when he knocked on the door. And so by the time I'd gotten up, got dressed, and run to the door, he was like walking off my porch. I'm like, hey, wait, I'm here. And he was having trouble. His volume on the TV wouldn't work, so we had to fix that. It's a remote issue, batteries and all. So that was an easy fix. But on the way back over to my house, I noticed that one of the 700 trees that grows in my yard needs to be removed. It's probably, 10 feet tall. Because I trimmed it. It's a dogwood tree. It's about 10 feet tall. It's about yay big around. And I'm thinking that tree has got to go. And so I did what manly men do, and I just ripped it out of the ground with my bare hands. I just bulldozed it over like an elephant in the Serengeti. Is that the right desert? Just bulldozed it over, ripped it out of the ground, threw it on the ground. I pounded my chest a little bit. I'm like, yeah. And then I went to the other side of my property, and I saw a little shrub that also needed to go. And I just grabbed it and just ripped it out of the ground. So I'm feeling great today because vegetation is 0, Scott 2. That's a good score. All right, Twubble, 16 months. Thank you very much. You're not rid of me yet. And Slothtilica, in her spare time while she's not fixing problems on the internet, found time to gift 5 memberships as well. And let's see, and gave Red Pen the internet. Ooh, so 5 good gifts and 1 questionable one is what we'll count that as. Slothtilica, thank you for your generosity. Red Pen, good luck. Good luck with the internet. Barb, thanks for watching last night. It's fun to hang out with everybody over there. Eventful morning already. It definitely is. We've got to go to court here in just 1 second, like now. So we need to sing happy birthday. We need to sing happy birthday here. Just 1 second. Let's do that. There we go. Hang on. Get into the birthday messages, which I had on the screen and then deleted. That was my fault. There we go. Got it. Okay. Everyone stand up, take a deep breath, shoulders back, project your voice to the back of the room, blend your voice with the neighbors, warm up with me if you will. La 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 la. We're going to sing to Grim Faded, Paula Mack, Karen Yalaki, T. Menorah Cameron, Petrified, and Jeannie, all in one verse. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Grim Faded, Paula Mack, Karen Yalaki, Jeremy, Verona, Cameron, and Petrified, and Jeannie. Happy birthday to you. That was terrible. T. Menorah, Cameron, Petrified, and Jeannie. I barely fit it in. Petrified, I saw you on the channel last night with Josh. Thanks for being generous over there as well. You were amazing. Grim Faded, Paula Mack, Karen Yalaki, T. Menorah, Cameron, Petrified, and Jeannie. Happy birthday. I realize there are many wonderful days. Today is your special day. Thank you very much for being with us. I realize there are a million places you could be, a million people you could have celebrated with, but you chose to be here with us. The privilege, the pleasure, the honor is all ours. Happy birthday, yeah. We'll return that pleasure to you by awarding you with free pancakes at Denny's, IHOP Village Inn, Waffle House, McDonald's, Tammy Dunlap's house, Bob Evans, and Andy's Grill. Red Pen's gloating, I have the internet. Whoa. That's what I hear when I see that. Whoa. All right. Welcome all. Oh, there's another buffer. What was the other buffer? I missed it. Maybe it wasn't a buffer. Kay's 15th birthday. Happy birthday, Kay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Kay. I think it's Kay's. Throat is mine. I saw you there. Crab legs for dinner. I'll have to do. Compliments of Lee. Sounds good. I think that's we've covered everybody. I think so. All we have left is to do a big drum solo finish. Karen Yalaki got you in the song. Happy birthday. There we go. Everyone, help me with the drum solos. Ready?
You look good.
Perfect. And Ricky C coming in with the Judge Fleischer trigger. Happy birthday. You look good. Right on time as usual. All right, we're going to jump over to court now. We are on, what is this? Are we already on day 5? Day 5 of this trial? It's looking good. We've got everybody present.
I saw a chicken fight.
So a chicken fight. I don't know who won.
I don't like podiums, Your Honor.
I don't like podiums either. The funny thing is that it's a lectern, right? I call it a podium, but isn't it a lectern? The podium is like the whole big area. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that a lectern or a podium? Despise that carpet. Yes, that's the carpet that was used for the drapes in the other courtroom or something similar. All right. Couple updates while we're waiting for court to start. I have every squirrel and every bird in my yard now. And Kiki loves it. Although I don't think he's caught anything yet. He just about scratched me. He was not in the mood to be pet today. Although he came running when we offered him food. like meat. Todd, congratulations, 98. That is awesome to see that number go up. Thank you for sharing that with us. Congratulations. While they're doing a little sidebar, I also want to take a moment to tell you that tomorrow's going to be gear day. I've got a little item coming. I'm super excited. It's actually a second item from something I already have on my desk. I got another one, and it will make things a little smoother when transitioning between different courts. So, Selena K, thanks for the kind words. It is a blast being on with Josh, his whole team. You only see Josh, but I get to see Kai and his wife and his daughter, and just hang out for a bit before and after. They're just an amazing team over there. That channel is incredible. It's going to blow up huge as they are. How many words do we have? Great question. I think we're up to 24. I need to let's see, where were we? I think it was this one. Box 1 will be 3. Box 2 will be 7. There we go. Sorted everything. Now I just need to get the counter on the screen. We'll be good. Window, tally count. Realize this is something I probably should do before we go live, but hey, don't at me. Not sure what I would, if I were that judge, I would order the maintenance guy to put a shade over the window. Wish we could hear this. The judge has the mute button, the all-powerful mute button in the courtroom. And she can kill the audio for everybody, which she has done. Well, it doesn't quite fit. I'll just say hold please while I fix the counter button. There we go. She doesn't know that we're still muted. If I were the audio guy, I'd be like, headphones, I can't hear. This could be a fun day. There we go. Got it.
And microphone near your mouth so the jury can hear you.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So, Mr. Leroy, let's go ahead and, if we can, kind of recap yesterday, just summarize very briefly. We were talking about determining the area of origin. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And we were going through your various hypotheses as to what may have been the area of origin at the Stermer residence. Is that also correct?
Yes.
And we had already disproved, it sounds like, 2 of your hypotheses as far as areas of origin from yesterday. Do you recall that?
Let me just object.
with it?
I didn't use the word disprove, I eliminated.
Eliminate, fair.
Yes. Or I was still working on, I eliminated the east section of the house and we were still discussing the south section.
Very good. And my memory serves correct, it looks like we were on People's Exhibit 34-13. I'll hand you those exhibits. Yes. Yeah, I think I admitted them yesterday afternoon, like first thing. And looking at 34-13, is that the photograph that's up on the screen?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. And is that your recollection where we may have left off yesterday?
Yes, we left off there yesterday. I was discussing the remains of the southern section of roof section, and I'd drawn your attention to a small area of burning in the roof just to the west, or as we look at the photograph, the top portion of the ridge line of the roof.
I think we're on the next
and
photograph.
I just suggested we switch to an interior view of the south section, which is going to be photo 22.
Before we go to 22, I did kind of neglect to ask this question of you. When you're evaluating burn damage, what are we looking for there?
Well, as I evaluate burn damage, I'm on the basics. I'm trying to find out how bad something is burned, and understanding the part that's burned the worst is the part that's gone. So, for instance, if we're at a campfire in the backyard and you put a log on the fire and it burns and it gets late, you go in, come out the next morning and there's still remnants of the log left.
I'm hearing
the
Adele
part
in
of the
my
log
head.
that's the furthest away from the fire has, sometimes it's not even burned, but it has the least amount of char. And as you look down the log towards where the fire was, it gets smaller, because that is what we refer to as mass loss. Mass of the log has been consumed away, so there's mass loss. So that's one of the things we're looking for. If there's mass loss, that means this may have been closer to the fire. And then when you get down closer to where the fire was, there's nothing left. That's also a term of mass loss. So as I'm evaluating burn damage, that is one of the things I'm looking for, is the mass loss of material, or we'll also use the word fuel. And when a fire investigator uses the word fuel, don't confuse that with like fuel for your vehicle or anything. We're talking about anything that burns.
Give me fuel, give me fire, give me that
Wood, paper, plastics, anything else that can burn, we consider fuel for the fire. So that's a generalization of when I'm looking at burn damage, what I'm doing. I'm trying to evaluate that burn damage to similar structures in that burn damage. The higher, the longer the burn, the more burn damage typically means that burned longer and it is closer to where the fire started.
Now, do you also evaluate burn damage on, say, things that are not part of the house, like a person?
Yes, it's one of the reasons I looked at Todd Stermer the night is to look at the burns on him. The burns on everything, furniture, the structure, and victims are part of the burn damage that need to be evaluated.
Very good. So now we're going to turn our attention, I believe you said, to picture number 22. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And what are we looking at here again?
So this photograph, I was standing in the central portion of the basement looking towards the south. So in the previous overhead shot, the area where the roof was still intact, this is the rooms directly underneath it. So this is going to be the rooms in the southwest quadrant of the structure. I'm looking for the fire damage in these two areas. One of the things to notice is the amount of debris on the floor of the second floor. Obviously, is
that the area I'm pointing to here?
Correct.
Okay.
Obviously, the floor between the first floor and the basement is gone. But you can see there's still wood or wall structure that's unburned, especially if you look at the photo, the top left of the photo, you can see a wall section that is unburned. And you can see a large amount of debris that the prosecutor pointed to earlier on the floor. Now, this debris would be a accumulation from both floors. Actually, the debris you're looking at on the top, that likely came from the first floor when the floor burned away and it collapsed down. The significance there is the amount of debris in this area is more solid than the area to the center. So what I'm saying is there's less mass loss of the fuel in this area than the center area. That determination helped me eliminate the south side of the structure as an area of origin.
And is the fact that the roof still appears to be intact in that area relevant? I'm not sure if we talked about that
Yes,
yet.
it is. That's part of the overall mass and the burn area of the south side.
So at that point in time, then, you were able to eliminate that particular area of the house. Is that correct?
The south section, yes.
South section. What section did you move on to next?
Next, let's go back to photo 13.
Certainly.
So I've eliminated the east section and the south section, so that leaves what I'm referring to as the center section and the quadrant in the northwest section. The northwest section, by evaluating it, obviously there's collapse damage. There is significant burn damage here, but by looking at it, I'm comparing the amount of mass of the fuel that's left, the amount of structure that's burned or unburned, and there is significantly more on the north side of unburned area. You can also see kind of in the middle between the north area and the center, there are studs. In this picture, they're actually kind of horizontal, but that's the picture of a wall that's collapsed down. But those studs are still intact, which denoted a wall section between the north part and the central part.
Just so the record's clear, we're talking about the area in the kind of upper right part of the photo here where I'm circling with my pointer?
Correct.
Okay. All right. And so at this point in time, were you able to eliminate that area, or is there additional evidence you need to consider?
So at that point, I eliminated that area, the northern area, as an area of origin. So now I'm concentrating on the center section. The center section has two floors, the main floor and the basement. I can see it with this photo. You can see it with this photo. You can see at the top of the photo, there's the exterior wall that appears to have remnants of a bay windows that you would typically...
This area here, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
That you would expect to see with a cathedral ceiling. So I'm going to examine this area. Now I want to determine if it's the first floor or the basement where the fire starts. So
this is key testimony, because if he can pin this down to basically say his chair was where it started, it's going to look really bad on Linda. Really bad. So you can imagine there's going to be some spicy cross. And I'm sure in this case, a defense expert as well to counter the opinion we're about to hear here. Yes, everyone's got the 3-point lighting systems.
I apologize.
Now for this live stream. Sorry, I'm all blurry too. Just collate your report on our time. It's fine. Doing great, sir. Doing great.
So if we can pull up photo 12.
12? No, that's easy.
So we're examining the west side or back side of the structure from the exterior. Important things to notice is, now I've already eliminated those sections, so I'm kind of concentrating on the center portion. I'm looking at the fire damage that's coming out of the windows. So where is the fire from inside the house first and longest coming out of the house? We look to the large bow windows. We can see there's heavy charring.
You meant bay.
All around those window sections. We've already seen that the roof in this area is consumed away.
And we're talking, just so I'm clear, this area here, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Now, if you look to the right, we're still talking the main floor, the area that I've previously eliminated, but you can see that there's fire coming out of that window, and you can see the black, and it kind of comes out in kind of a cone shape out of the window as the fire does. Now let's compare those two areas, the burn damage there, to the windows on the basement level.
That would be these windows down in this area here.
Correct. So notice the amount of fire, or specifically lack of fire, coming out of those windows. Let's go to photo 17.
17?
Yes.
He's walking us through his logical process of elimination to find the source point. And it is a logical process here. It makes sense.
So this is the close-up of the door
Defense
leading
is
into the
sweating.
basement. We've talked about how heavy the fire is to the windows above, but this basement window, there is no fire coming out of that door. And the two windows on the side, the one to the left doesn't have any smoke or fire coming out of it. The one to the right has some smoke and probably a little bit of heat coming out of it. But comparatively to those other windows, and especially the windows above, dramatically less. The reason for this is, or let me say it a different way. If, as I'm thinking about area of origin, if I think, what would this look like if this fire started in the basement? If that fire had started in the basement in this center section, what would that fire do? It would eventually go up to the ceiling, which is going to be the floor of the first floor, and from there it's going to start spreading to other areas of the basement, including venting out those windows. Now, if it goes long enough, it will eventually burn through the floor, and then it will go up into the living room. But before that happens, it's going to burn and spread through the basement. Let's look at it the other way around. If the fire starts on the first floor, where's that fire going to go? The fire's going to want to go up. So as it goes up and it starts spreading on that main floor, it's going to spread, eventually go through the windows, and then it will start attacking the roof. At some point, the roof, in this case, burned, collapsed, and when it collapsed, it came down. Whoops, I'm sorry. When it came down, and then it started burning away the floor. At some point in this incident, the floor burned away, and then all of that debris on the first floor now dropped into the basement. But since the roof was already burned away, the fire will go straight up instead of going sideways. It's sort of like if
He loves his
you're
job.
outside and you have a burn barrel, and you have all kinds of holes in the side of the burn barrel. When you light something on fire in that burn barrel, the fire doesn't come out the holes in the side because it can go straight up and out. So that's kind of an analogy for what's going on here. Because the roof is already burned away, the fire that's now in the house can go straight up and not out those windows. So given that information, I've now narrowed my area of origin to the main floor living room in the central part of the house, central west part of the house.
I think every expert
And
should
if
be
we
this
flip
excited
back
about
to
his career
People's Exhibit 13.
or her career.
That would be this area right here where I'm circling with my pointer. Is that correct?
Yes. If you can, could you zoom in to that area real quick?
Yes.
And biggin. He's not using extremely technical terms, although there are some terms I'm sure he could use here.
So the boundaries of that room, you can see towards the bottom of the photograph, there's a wall section that is above the fireplace. So that would be the eastern wall of the living room. On the left side where that roof is, that would be the boundary for the south side of the living room. We know you can see the exterior is the boundary to the west side of the living room. And where you see that wall collapsed, that would be the boundary for the north side of the living room. So in that area that we're looking at right now, on the main floor, is the area of origin. Is what I determined to be the area of origin.
So you determined the area of origin to be the living room of the Stermer residence?
Correct.
And in determining the area of origin, at the time you determined this originally, did you have information about the statements of what Linda Stermer had stated to either Mr. Shinsky or other investigators?
Not at this point, no.
And had you received any information about the gasoline present on Mr. Stermer's sweatpants, if you recall?
I had not received well, I hadn't even taken the sweatpants to the lab at this point.
Okay.
Because this was all done on the January 8th.
And I think we've already touched on this a little bit. The next finding you need to make is basically the cause of the fire. Is that fair?
Correct.
And how is it you go about doing that?
To determine the cause, I say cause, what started the fire? What was the ignition source of the fire is trying to determine the cause of the fire. It's one of the kind of the same process, the scientific method as we did with origin. I'm looking in the area of origin and I'm figuring what is there that can start a fire. Now, I'm breaking this down into origin and cause and section, but as the two in real life kind of happens simultaneously. As I'm looking through the house, I'm taking notice. As I'm looking for the area of origin, I'm obviously taking notice of items that may be a cause of the fire or need to be considered a cause of the fire. We kind of break it down, one for analysis purposes, one or the other, but really it almost happens at the same time as you're walking around. So in the area of origin, things I considered at what could start the fire. The fireplaces, an associated chimney. I considered smoking, electrical, the furnace, the laundry machines. And I also considered an intentionally set fire as a possible fire cause. So then I start examining those to see if I can eliminate them from the scenario.
Are you familiar with the term ignition source?
Yes.
What is that?
Ignition source is something that generates enough heat to ignite or catch fire a piece of fuel.
And are you familiar with the term first fuel ignited?
The term is pretty self-explanatory. The ignition source comes into the fuel that is first ignited or first caught on fire.
Fair enough. Let's, if we can, then work through your hypotheses as to what may have caused the fire at the Stermer residence, if we can. What was the first hypotheses you would have tested against the data you collected?
The first one I would have looked at is the laundry machines. We had one photo of, got a couple photos actually.
I love his humming.
If we go to photo 23.
Certainly.
See, Linda has a strong hair light and a fill light, but no key light.
We're looking at 23?
Yes, 23.
Okay.
So when we introduced this photo yesterday, I mentioned you could directly in the middle of the photograph on the other side of those 2x4s is a white vertical. That is the side of one of the laundry machines. And we don't need to go through it, but we also showed a photo of the dryer. Those can be eliminated as a fire cause because they're not in the area of origin. They're on the other side of that 2x4 wall, and there is, if one of the mental exercises a fire investigator goes through when he looks at an area of an ignition source, excuse me, is you look at that and say, okay, if this started the fire, what would this fire look like? If the fire starts in one of those laundry machines or at one of those laundry machines, it's going to spread from the laundry room, going to go up, it's going to spread outward. Well, as it does that, it's going to start consuming fuel, the structure of the house. Well, in this case, in order for that amount of fire damage to occur in the living room, the fire from the laundry room would have had to burn through that wall or up the stairs. Well, there's still significant mass left of that wall. As a matter of fact, if you look at those studs, 2x4s, they're not even smoked. The typical reason those aren't even smoked in this case is because they had drywall on them. If you can see that center 2x4 towards the bottom, you can see right there, you can see a strip that's kind of greenish and white. That's leftover drywall or gypsum board. So that was on that wall, and drywall serves as a fire barrier. And so that would have kept the fire from the laundry room into the living room. The reason it's gone now is during fire suppression, that drywall gets crumbly in the fire, and then when it's hit with a high pressure water hose, then it falls off. So with that I can eliminate laundry machines as the cause of the fire. I also considered the furnace. Let's look at photo 26.
This guy has a smoke-flavored air freshener in his car. He just loves fire.
Is that photo 26?
Yes. This is right in the center of the photograph. You can see the sheet metal. That is the furnace. Again, notice the amount of structural material that's still there compared to the living room. And go to photo 27. That is a closer view of the furnace. Now the furnace is damaged because the upper stories collapsed on top of it, so there was damage. I examined the fuel lines, didn't find any significant leak in the fuel lines. that I could see visually or I could test, and there was structural damage, or the structural damage around the furnace was less than the area of origin in the living room. So with that, I was able to eliminate the furnace as a cause of the fire.
What would be another possible
eliminates the
hypothesis
basement.
you would consider as to the cause of this fire?
One of the hypotheses was smoking, but I learned that that there was no smoker, or that no one smoked cigarettes in the Stermer household. I think occasionally, I would say that Todd would occasionally smoke a pipe, but no one smoked cigarettes in the home.
And did you receive any indication that anyone was smoking in the house that day?
I did not.
And what else did you consider as a possible hypothesis for the cause of the fire?
I considered electrical cause. Well, let me back up. I considered an electrical cause. Electrical cause is a little more difficult because a lot of the electrical components are missing, which is not uncommon when you're doing a fire investigation, especially one of this magnitude, that sometimes the electrical components just are gone. So you have to consider how the fire burned, the fire dynamics. And you have to consider where the electrical is located. Electrical is located typically in the walls or the ceiling. So if the electrical system malfunctioned or failed,
Mindful Crafts by Donna, thank you so much.
that fire is going to be in the wall. And electrical fires start small. So if you think about if you have something plugged into an outlet and that starts sparking and catches on fire, well, that fire is going to start small and it's going to slowly grow. It's not going to be a large, expansive fire at the onset. It's going to slowly grow. The indication, number one, we noticed a lot of the walls are still in place. Right? When we looked at the photographs for the southern bedrooms, we had that one wall that was still there. We still had significant wall structure on I'm talking about studs. The studs are left on the north side. So if an electrical fire would start in those walls, we wouldn't see those studs, because they would have to, same thing. The fire would have to burn out, get rid of those studs before it could get into the living room and burn up to the roof. And the origin is not coming from any of the wall areas. It's coming more from the living space of the living room, on the first floor living room. So given the fire dynamics, the way the fire reacted, and the lack of initial damage to the walls, I eliminated electrical cause at that point.
Now, you mentioned an electrical fire is kind of a fire that starts small. Is that what you elaborated on here?
Correct.
And is that if you can opine on this, a fast developing fire or a kind of a smoldering, slow developing fire?
The development of the fire would all depend on the fuel load around it. The electrical short or the electrical fire starts small, but if that electrical fire happened to have been surrounded by styrofoam, it's going to burn faster than if it was just touching wood. So that varies.
Would there be smoke?
There would be smoke.
And to your understanding, how many people were in the Stermer residence on January 7, 2007?
I was told on both 7th and the 8th that there was 2 people in the residence, Todd Stermer and Linda Stermer.
And is the fact that there are 2, and this fire occurred about what time, if you recall?
3:30 in the afternoon, or 2:30? I'd have to look at a report to get the exact time, but it was in the afternoon.
In the afternoon. And typical hours when people would be awake?
Correct.
And does that factor into this decision at all, that there were two persons in the home that would likely be awake?
Yes, I was given initial information from the Van Buren County detectives who did some initial interviews on the 7th that there were two people. Linda and Todd were in the house at the time of the fire, and they were both awake. Todd may have been taking a nap, but Linda was awake. These were some initial statements that the Sheriff's Department relayed to me.
Jams.
So I guess to kind of get to the bottom of my question here, if
13 months. Thank you.
And to your knowledge, were either of the Stermers disabled or invalid of any kind?
Not that I'm aware of.
In fires you've investigated before, does that play a role in that in when there's a fatality or something sometimes?
Yes, it does.
How so?
I've done fatal fires before where people were bed bound or wheelchair bound. I think one of the fires, a person was wheelchair bound, and the fire started in their lap from smoking, and because they're wheelchair bound and they're by themselves, they couldn't escape. Same thing, I've had people who are bedridden, fire starts, and they're unable to escape because they physically can't move. Also, occasionally, I've had it where people are known to be intoxicated and in bed, and this can also impair their ability to escape or to self-rescue themselves from a fire.
Would you agree with the premise then that the likelihood that a person is awake and not invalid, for lack of better words, would increase the chance that they may notice a small fire or a fire starting slowly? Don't think so at all. I think it's a hypothesis.
I'll overrule that. I don't think it's leading.
Yes, I would take that in consideration. The general condition of a person and how quickly they discover the fire or they could take action about the fire, both mental and physical state.
I mean, this kind of goes without saying, but does smoke have a smell to it?
Typically.
Do electrical fires have a certain smell to them?
They do, and there's sometimes they're associated with sound.
What kind of sound?
Like an arcing sound. Not everyone. Electrical fires is kind of a broad category, and I got to be very careful to try to lump one generalization to all electrical fires.
And when you describe an arcing sound, is it like an electrical current kind of sound, like the sound of?
If you take two wires and you touch them together, and it's going to go, you can hear the zap pop, and usually if you're holding the wires, you usually jump.
Fair. Thank you. Just want to make sure everyone understood that in case people haven't played with electricity.
Don't play with
what
electricity.
Was the next, so at that point in time, I guess, were you able to eliminate electrical?
I eliminated electrical as a fire cause at that point.
What was the next hypothesis you would have tested in this case?
I examined and considered the fireplace for a hypothesis. On the day of my exam on the 8th, I believe I was aware that there could have been a fire in the upstairs fireplace from the information that was passed to me by the Sheriff's Department detectives.
If I can stop you right there, when we say upstairs, we're talking about the main floor of the house. Is that correct? Okay.
There's basement and the main floor, and if I misspeak, I say main floor, first floor. I'm meaning the main floor where the living room is.
Very good.
So I started examining the fireplaces. Let's look at photo 19.
Row, thank you. You're on the road. Drive safely, please. Thanks for the super chat. Good morning, friends. On the road today. 6 hours of driving, so I'll catch up tonight. Hub's not a true law, true crime fan. Long day ahead.
This is photo 19. This is the main floor fireplace. Before I talk about this, I just want to go to photo 20 real quick. Yes, that's photo 20. I documented what was inside the fireplace, and there is burnt wood in the fireplace. So that tells me there may have been a fire. Now, obviously, is it possible that fire debris during the collapse got in there? It's possible, but unlikely, because the collapse is going to come straight down versus jump sideways. This is likely it's probable that there was a fire in that main floor fireplace. Now we can go back to 19. So I'm examining the fireplace. To understand the construction of this fireplace, this is a modern fireplace versus I'll call an old-time hand-built fireplace. Old-time hand-built fireplace, the kind you'll find in the nice farmhouses that are 150 years old. They were built piece by piece with stone or brick, made the firebox where the fire actually was built. There was a brick or clay liner in the chimney that went up to carry the smoke out. Typical modern fireplaces are a contained steel box, and that's what you're looking at there. And out of the top of the steel box is a steel round chimney pipe. Sometimes it's referred to as a vent or a flue, and that is the round chimney pipe that's connected to that firebox, the steel firebox, and then it runs up, eventually out through the roof. Then what's the important part for that? That is the actual fireplace construction. Typically then, people build walls around it because nobody wants to look at the ugly backside of a metal fireplace or the fireplace, the chimney. So they'll build walls around it, and sometimes you'll see they'll actually put like brick or stone on these walls, but that's just for decoration. The walls themselves are typically built of wood, and I refer to that as the chimney chase. So that's the area inside or around the fire, the chimney, the metal chimney, that's separating that chimney from the rest of the living portion of the house, is this chase. And it's typically built with wood. It may be drywalled. Sometimes they'll have OSB on there. It varies on construction, but that's a chimney chase. If there is, so I'm considering ignition sources from the fireplace. Did the chimney malfunction? Was there a chimney fire? If the chimney malfunctions, I've seen it where holes have developed in chimney pipe. So now the hot gases from the smoke that go up the chimney can escape the chimney itself and get into this chase area. Now this chase area is built with, especially in this case, you can see it's built with wooden structural members. So that those wooden structural members have some sort of sheeting on the outside. Could be OSB, could be drywall. That's going to contain, just like we talked about earlier with the laundry machines. If that hot smoke or gases are in that chase, that's going to contain that hot gases and eventual fire for a while inside that chase. The fire inside that chase is going to go up, typically burn out the roof at the top of the chase, and then it's going to eventually spread outward. And as it spreads outward, it's going to consume the fuel or the wooden structural material that make up that chase to proceed. And typically that'll always happen at the top versus the bottom, depending on where the hot gases from the chimney collect the most and the longest for the fire to start. Excuse me. You can see here on the photo 19, this is the upstairs fireplace again, and you can see the remnants of the wall that was built around it. This wall would have been part of the chimney chase, where the metal chimney would have gone behind it. You can see there's 3 2x4 studs still in place and intact to the right. There's one directly above that is broken up to the left. That's broken off, but in your mind's eye, you can straighten it up and you can see where it would be. And there's one that's missing directly above it. of the fireplace. There's an area where there should have been one. You can, if you know what you're looking for, right at the bottom, you can see the stub where the nails were.
Studs
right
are 16 inches on
There
center.
was one.
There's a gap
Now,
of about 32 inches.
That's obviously, remember, we've had a lot of fire in here and structural collapse. And we've also have that 2x6 that runs horizontally right across the top of the fireplace. That still has clean wood and burned. So like I mentioned before, that likely had drywall on it up until the fire hoses hit it and knocked it off. So looking at the damage profile, specifically the lack of damage there, that's significant in considering this as a chimney fire or a fireplace fire. Additionally, if we look at photo 21, this is the chimney pipe that I collected from inside the structure. Later, yesterday we talked about excavating. Later I would excavate then it would be the basement floor, but had the debris from both the basement, main floor, and the roof directly above in this area. This chimney pipe was located. I moved it out and I put it here. I examined it and nothing extraordinary came to my attention. Obviously, if you look at it, it's bent, it's burned, but remember there was a whole house burning on top of it at one point. So, and the collapse happened. That's going to disform the metal, disform the pipe, and it was under burning roof sections for a while. So there is fire damage. But that being, what I discovered is there was nothing obvious to me that would indicate there was something wrong with that chimney. And that also states for the fireplace itself. I didn't find anything obvious with the metal fireplace box that would show that it malfunctioned or there was something wrong with it. And that backs up with the lack of burning of the stud, the wooden stud members around it. At that point, I could eliminate the fireplace and chimney as a potential ignition source.
If I can back up then to number 19, I guess, and maybe I missed this, but can you explain why it is you would expect this stud right here to be burned?
If the fireplace was the start of the fire is going to be directly above the fire. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm doing that again. Is going to be directly above the fireplace, and that's going to be one of the first structural members that are going to burn.
And so I guess just by the dynamic, would we expect then, as it burns to the roof, hot material to be falling down on top of the fireplace? Or what are we...
It depends if we're talking about the fires in the chase or outside the chase.
Inside the chase.
If it's inside the chase, the fire's going to go up inside the chase. If it burns the roof section, that'll eventually burn and fall down into and sit on top of the fireplace itself. I've seen fires in new houses before where the cellulose insulation will fall in, and on top of that firebox and start the fire on top of that box, of the firebox. But the fire is inside the chase, sitting on top of that metal firebox, not in the place where the fire is supposed to be, which is surrounded by like fire bricks. So yes, if the fire was down there, we'd expect to burn off that area.
And what other hypothesis did you consider as to the cause of the fire?
I considered the possibility of a log rolling out of the fireplace. The entire living room was consumed. The floor, the furniture, the whole thing was consumed. So by looking at that hypothesis, that was more of a mental examination of the fire dynamics. So we think about, okay, what would happen if a log on fire rolled out into the room? If that burning log is sitting in the middle of the room, the fire from that log is still going to go up. It's going to start burning the floor underneath it, but for the fire to spread from that log, it's going to take a significant amount of time. And when I mean significant, I mean it's going to take several minutes for it to really spread, versus if a log rolls onto your floor in your living room, the whole living room floor isn't going to burst into flames. It's going to take a while for it to progress. Same thing if that log, let's say, rolled all the way over and was up against a couch. The couch is going to catch fire, yes, but if you would watch it, it would start at the log, it would start slowly moving up and into the couch and start slowly spreading on the couch. And of course, as it's doing this, it's giving off smoke and heat that would be easily detectable by someone in the house before it could spread to the entire living room area. So with that, that dynamic eliminates the log hypothesis as a fire cause.
And if I can kind of circle back to the idea of a chimney or a fireplace fire, you indicated that those are kind of it takes time for the heat to build up before that fire can erupt, for lack of better words.
Because yes, the main heat is contained in the firebox and in the chimney. How that heat gets out usually comes from a small, like a chimney, even a chimney fire. It's a chimney fire that escapes the chimney. It's coming through a small hole. So that's all the heat has to come through that small hole until at some point it ignites the surrounding chimney chase. And that can take time. Obviously, times are very subjective depending on how close the combustible materials are to the chimney, how long has it been, and how old is it, the materials that are made of. So that's very subjective. But yes, it doesn't. If you have a hole in your chimney, you start a fire, it's not going to the whole thing isn't going to burst into flames. There's going to be a progression.
In that progression, would there be smoke?
There would be.
And is that something that possibly a person who's not invalid would possibly notice within the residence?
He's not any kind of human factors expert. What somebody would or would not do is not within his expertise.
I think he's capable of testifying based on his training experience about he's investigated these in the past. I think it's fairly reasonable.
I'll allow it.
A typical person should notice smoke in their house. Where that, again, every fire is a little different, so I can't say if this would have been a chimney fire exactly how the smoke and heat would have progressed.
Were there functioning smoke alarms?
Fair, thank you. And so we've talked about a log rolling out, and you have eliminated that. What is your next hypothesis that you went to?
One of the hypotheses I considered was during the initial interviews with Linda Stermer, she mentioned that there was some an oil candle on the, I believe it was the half wall between the living room and the dining room on the north side. Again, I considered that. Again, that is a small fire source. I don't know what this oil candle looked like. I'm using generalization terms. I'm assuming it is a normal, could be as much as a lantern, an oil lantern, or a smaller candle that's from.
Well then, yeah, he's describing what are possible oil lanterns that he's encountered, so I think he's even said he doesn't know what it was, but he's just describing what they could be.
I'll allow it.
It's two allows.
I was given information that there was an oil candle in the area. Do not know the size or makeup of it. But if this candle broke or tipped over, again, the fire is going to be relatively small. And it's going to be contained over towards the area of where it was located, which is the half wall towards the north side of the living room. That did not, again, that also has a hard time meeting the challenge of going undiscovered until it was a very large fire.
And these oil lamps, are you familiar with what type of fuel they burn?
The typical oil that these lamps burn are lamp oil. It would actually, if it's tested in a lab, it would come back referred to as a heavy petroleum distillate, which is the same as kerosene or diesel fuel.
And in this case, did you ever receive any lab reports that there was a heavy, which you just described here in court, present in the Stermer residence?
In the lab results back, there were no indications of a heavy petroleum distillate.
Thank you. And what was the next hypothesis you would have considered? The
next hypothesis I considered was an intentionally started fire. With this hypothesis, the one piece of data on this date, I had smelled accelerant on Todd Stermer's pants. I later learned to further that hypothesis, I waited until I got lab results. I got the lab results back that Todd Stermer's pants had gasoline on them. So I took that information and said, does that fit what I have at the scene? So with a gasoline is on Todd Stermer, and Todd Stermer is also severely burned. So remember I talked about burns on people are also burn patterns. Just like looking at the structure, the burns on Todd Stermer indicated he was at or near the...
Move to strike. One, he's not a medical expert, and under Smelser versus Norfolk Railway, he can't testify to medical conditions.
He's not testifying about a medical condition. He's talking about the burns he observed on his body.
Causation.
You're both talking.
Sorry.
Thank you. He's talking about causation, burn patterns causing whatever this degree of injury is. That's a medical opinion he can't make.
I don't think that's what he was testifying to. I think
You're just
Mr.
asking about burn patterns?
Yeah.
All of the testimony was to burn patterns.
The state's winning so far today. 3 wins for the state.
As a result, burns on a person is a burn pattern. It is stated right in NFPA 921 that burns on a human is a burn pattern.
You just mentioned NFPA 921. We haven't heard that here in court yet today. What is that?
Okay.
What is that, please?
NFPA 921, it's a long acronym. The NFPA stands for National Fire Protection Association. The National Fire Protection Association puts out volumes and volumes of information about building construction, safety precautions, anything to do with fire. And there's so many of them, they give them a number. So the specific number, NFPA, National Fire Protection Association 921, is the document that the National Fire Protection Association puts out as a guide to fire investigations. And that is updated, well, now it's updated about every 3 years.
The digital
guide, or
version.
has it also been considered a reference manual?
It's a guide, it's a reference manual.
Digital edition, $163.
So again, we just talked about you considered the burns on Todd Stermer. How is that relevant to your determination of an intentionally set fire?
Print 163.
We know that Todd, with the burns on Todd, I know he is at or near the area of origin. And with the gasoline, positive for gasoline on his sweatpants, that says there is gasoline at or near the area of origin. Now the gasoline at the area of origin actually fits the description of a fast-moving fire, where a whole, instead of a small individual area, the whole area is on fire at the same time.
Uniformly.
Well, let's go this way. Does the statement of Linda Stermer that you reviewed factor into this as well?
Linda Stermer's statement is very important to my factor.
Why is that?
Because Linda Stermer was at the scene. She was in the house. She was able to give statements. Witness statements are very important. Her statement was that she was in the basement. She heard Todd upstairs scream. She ran upstairs and she saw the living room on fire. Subsequent statements, that was the initial statement I believe she gave the detective route. Then later statements were more specific. It says, started the same, in the basement, heard Todd scream, ran up the stairs, described seeing the recliner towards the north side of the living room on fire. Todd was towards the south in the living room with his upper torso on fire. And there was fire on the floor between Todd and the recliner. That description of a very quick starting fire, of she's in the basement, she's awake, and she hears a scream, that would be in. Then she goes upstairs and finds this large fire, not concentrated in one area, but it's spread in two areas across the room with a connecting fire between. That is an indication of a fast fire, which would be explained by the presence of an ignitable liquid, gasoline, which would lead to, and there's been no evidence of why gasoline should be in the living room. That would to lead me to believe this is an intentionally set fire.
Now, additionally, the, for lack of a word, trail of fire from essentially one side of the living room to the other was described by Linda Stermer. Is that what your testimony was?
Yes.
And in your line of work, is that described as something?
It can mean several things.
Okay.
I'd prefer just to leave it at that statement.
Okay, fair enough. So your conclusion, based on your review of the evidence, and I'm summarizing the gasoline and what was described by Linda Stermer, is this was an intentionally set fire. Is that correct?
Correct. And this also, I also use this to confirm my origin determination. She says the origin is in the main floor, first floor living room.
And so we've already kind of talked about what the first fuel ignited is earlier. Do you have an opinion as to what the first fuel ignited in this case was?
Yes, I do.
What was that?
The first fuel ignited was fumes from the gasoline.
And let's talk about that a little bit. How does gasoline burn, for lack of a better way to describe it?
Gasoline, as we know, is liquid. We put it in our lawnmowers and our cars. People who are unsafe sometimes try to use it to get their leaves burning. When you burn gasoline, it's actually not the liquid that burns. It's the vapor that comes off the gasoline that burns. So if you've ever seen videos of people pour gasoline on a pile of leaves and then they start walking up to it with something to light it, and it catches on fire before they get to the pile of leaves, that's because the vapors from the gasoline, the liquid gasoline, has now evaporated and spread into a vapor cloud until it hits an ignition source, and then it ignites.
And does the fact that the gasoline may be indoors or outdoors affect how that may happen?
The environment as a whole, indoors or outdoors, is going to affect, is there a wind, the temperature, if it's hotter outside, the gasoline is going to evaporate quicker. Any air currents are going to move the vapor around.
And in this case, I've already asked you what the ignition source. Did you determine what you believe to be the ignition source in this case?
The ignition source would have been open flame.
Do you have any idea what the source of the open flame may have been?
I do not know definitively what the open flame would be.
But we do know there was a fire burning in the fireplace per the statements of Linda Stermer.
There was open flame in the living room from statements and indications that there's logs, so there would have been open flame in the fireplace.
Now, we've talked about what you kind of touched on it already. What is a flash fire?
A flash fire is almost self-descriptive. It's a fire that immediately propagates quickly, like a flash. It goes very fast. It would be indicative of a gasoline fire.
So, for instance, when the vapors of a gasoline poured someplace are exposed to an open flame.
Correct. The vapors are going to ignite. The fire and the vapors are going to spread to the source, which is typically going to be the liquid gasoline, because that's where the source of the gasoline vapors came from. And then the fire is then going to make the liquid gasoline evaporate faster because it's hotter, and then it'll be burned more. And it'll burn faster until the gasoline, in some cases, is burned up.
And that was my next question. Can fire totally consume gasoline?
Yes.
Leaving no trace?
It is possible, yes.
And just so the record's clear, and Judge, I'm going to ask this as a leading question so we don't go afoul of anything. You are not offering any opinion here today as to who set this fire, correct?
No.
You have just a moment, Your Honor?
See if we get to spicy defense already, or if they have anything else on direct.
Just one last question. I am sorry. I neglected to ask this. You indicated earlier there was a fuel oil furnace in this house. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is fuel oil different from gasoline?
It is.
How so?
So
much higher flash
it
point.
is they're both petroleum products, but they're refined differently. If you were to take fuel oil and submit it to the laboratory for analysis, that would come back as a heavy petroleum distillate. The lab, and if you ever had Troy Ernst, he'd probably describe this better than I did, but it is a different than gasoline. Gasoline can be determined specifically, where the other petroleum distillates are put into broad categories of heavy, medium, and light petroleum distillates. Fuel oil would be a heavy petroleum distillate, along with kerosene and some lamp oils.
Thank you. Nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, defense. Little break.
Not to discuss the case or do any research. Media.
All right. They're going to take a quick break here. See if they have anything to discuss. Barb Russell says, after watching the Recovery Addict last night on the podcast, I have a new insight to this case. Do let us know, Barb. Sorry, that's not the camera wants to cut to. How embarrassing. See, going around the world of true crime, we do have happening right now, obviously, Karen Reed.
Jury has left any matters to address in the break.
Who can decide whether the prosecution has proved its case beyond a reasonable doubt. If the Commonwealth does not do that...
Yeah, we've that going on. She's talking to the jury. They're still trying to see the jury. In that case, we'll watch that and see how that develops. Let's see. I think it's going to be spicy. It's going to be hot on the cross. The problem is we've got a fire investigator who's basically ruled out all the other areas. He ruled out the basement, the heating oil, the furnace. He's ruled out the bedrooms, the electrical. He's basically saying the fire started right here in Todd's chair, where, according to the defendant, he was sleeping. There's a problem. If he's sleeping in the chair, he's not running outside grabbing a can of gasoline to douse himself and cause all this. So crazy. Are we going to get poor grammar lawyer or the rude lawyer this time? Rude. We're going with rude. Okay. But I said this on the podcast last night. I think that him being rude and aggressive with witnesses is a tactic and a style that's extremely effective. I don't think he's just like that. His character is flawed and he treats people badly as a general rule. I think he is doing something intentionally to push the witness out of their comfort zone, out of their confidence, away from their confidence, and possibly get them to question or say something that might help the defense. So we like to not like him because we're like, wow, how rude. Why would you do that to somebody you've never met? Why are you treating him like that? But at the same time, he's doing a good job for his client, and that's what I would want if I was charged with something and felt that I was innocent. This testimony proves that Todd didn't start the fire. Someone else did. He's not saying who, but there were only 2 people in the house. Draw your own conclusions, jury. That's where we're at. I have to say his explanations of how things burn and how they look at a fire and look at the fuels, what was in the fire, how consumed it is, the patterns of smoke, what remains, it makes sense. Okay, there's a lot of what I would say is logical common sense once you understand fire and fire patterns. And how fire acts. It acts based on scientific principles. Okay, it's not some random animal with, rabid animal that will suddenly lash out without any warning in a different direction. It is very predictable. And if you have known fuels, known conditions, and you introduce fire, it will act in a predictable way. And so they're able to look at the charred remains even after the fire department's destroyed everything with their high pressure water hoses, and work backwards and put that back together and say, this is where we can tell the fire started here. I would be surprised. I don't think they said there was any trace evidence of gasoline in the fire. I'm pretty sure that a fire that burned that hot and that long would have evaporated all the gasoline in the fire. Did a great job explaining. I don't think any of the jury members said, hey, slow down, this is too technical. He broke it down to layman's terms. It was good. How they make eliminations of what didn't happen. I learned way too much during our house fire. Yeah, that's something nobody wants to learn firsthand. I'm sorry that you went through that, Evangeline Light. Fires travel in predictable ways. I was once hiking up in the mountains, and there was little bits of snow falling on us, and it was summertime, and it was hot. And I'm like, what is that? There's little tiny flakes of snow, but it wasn't cold or wet. And I hiked up to the top of the hill. As I got to the top of the hill, I saw a big cloud, like a thundercloud, I thought was what it was, because it was dark. I'm like, what? And I got over the top of the hill and looked down. There was a fire coming up the hill towards me. I'm like, I'm going to go back down my side and then head down. I did not start that one, just for the record. All right. Make sure you have working smoke and CO detectors in your home, multiple ones. The number of homes without any is scary. I have one in my office. Just need to go check that again. I think we have... we got like 6. We have a lot. I'm sure he could get more technical. I'm glad he didn't. Valerie, we'll see how he does on Cross. I think he's fairly confident. I don't think Cross is a fire expert. They've probably studied up on this, but what he was talking about is just common sense. It's there in front of you. The facts are in front of you. The boards that are burned most have been burning the longest. If all the 2x4s are the same size and they were all exposed, the ones that have burned the most have been burning the longest, and that would indicate that was the closer to the origination point of the fire. And if you've got sections of the house that have very little damage, it's indicated that there's probably not the source in there. Right, some of the bedrooms where it just had some smoke damage out the windows up at the top, but no real fire damage at the bottom. Those are ruled out immediately. Ruling out the basement, ruling out the chimney. These are good things, but now you're only left with this was intentionally set. If she got a repeal on part because of not calling an expert, do you think they will? I think they will, but they also have the challenge of finding an expert who will look at this fire and say, yep, this was an accident. I don't think they're going to get that. I don't think they're going to get somebody that says you can clearly see that this was caused by sparks from the fireplace that lit the carpet on fire. Okay? Do a little, okay, we say don't play with electricity. Play with fire a little bit in a safe environment. Do this. Have a little campfire. Get a long dry stick and stick it in the coals and get it burning really well, and then take it out and hold it away from the fire and watch what happens to the flame on the stick. Right? It's still burning, but the flame away from the fire will go out on its own unless it's extremely dry and very hot. Even if you were to set it on something flammable, unless it was like flash flammable, like dry weeds or something. There's a good chance that it won't even light that on fire with it just being on its own. Fire sort of needs, it needs a good fuel source, it needs oxygen, and it needs, the heat. And when you take the heat factor away from the other flames, I don't think it would have spread like that. It doesn't stand to reason that the fire would have started like that. They're going to need a fire investigator who looks at this and says, it could have been accidental, but he'll basically say the same thing this investigator said. Let's see. Rules unclear. I thought you meant where I was sitting, house is on fire. Do we think the smoking gun was the gas can in the front yard? I think that's a piece of evidence that can't be dismissed, especially when we have gasoline on his clothes and a gasoline can tested with some gasoline residue in it, and a big house fire. I think it's circumstantial evidence, but it's quite damning. Whole house detectors make cooking fun. Yes, the way I cook it's basically like testing our smoke alarms every time. Defense investigator would give 6 alternate theories. I saw, Liebel, you were working on a bingo card. I didn't get a chance to pull it up and look at the details, but I saw you were underway. I'll have to take a look at that. Did the insurance pay out for the fire damage? I don't know. I don't know on that one. Smoke alarms are not timers. Daybell starts on Monday. East Idaho News is going to carry that one live. Money can buy witness experts to testify on almost everything. Okay, but once you testify to something that the rest of the industry says that could not happen, you sort of shot yourself in the foot. So I hope you get a good fee this time around. I don't think there's any indication there's a third-party culprit involved. Nobody has alleged that at all. Insurance payout was rejected due to it being determined to be arson. agent told her to pay up her premium to get it up to date and she could make the claim. She did, but the claim was rejected apparently. I haven't heard if there were fire detectors in the house. I've missed that. So that's a fun fact you still have to have revealed to us. I know it was under construction. I think she went down to the basement laundry to change her clothes, and that's why she was wearing clothes that didn't smell of gas. Fire department came to where I worked, and each of us put a fire out. We learned how to use extinguishers. We were in the parking lot. Did you use the PASS method, the pull, aim, squeeze, sweep? Aim for the base of the fire. It's important to know how to use a fire extinguisher. Used incorrectly, they're very ineffective. Fun little fire experience I had while we're on break. I'll tell you this little story. When I was in high school, because of my, let's just say, extracurricular activities, I got the opportunity to work off citizenship bad points, like missing classes and things like that. Would get you would get a letter grade for your scholarly work, and then you got the citizenship grade for attendance and things like that. So there were some classes that I got U's in, which are unsatisfactory. And I got to work those off. It was my opportunity to do that. One of the opportunities, I could either go pick up trash along the freeway, or one of the opportunities that was presented to work off some of my U's were community service. Yes, Northwest, you're right. And the community service, particularly, there was a need for a CERT class that needed some victims for a mock disaster. And so I said, hey, that sounds like a lot more fun than picking up trash, right? And so I signed up for that. We went one Saturday morning to, it was the city offices where they had it was like a scrap yard and, had all sort of equipment. And they had brought in some crashed cars and some props for this. And it's a big area. I'd probably say it's about, 25 acres or so. And we show up, and I don't know what you call it. There's a team from Hill Air Force Base, an Air Force team that specializes in makeup for mock disasters. I didn't know that was a thing in the Air Force, but I guess they have something for everybody. And so they show up all in their BDUs, their camo and everything, and they've got like bags and boxes of makeup, everything you can think of. And they're like, we're going to make some injuries to make the experience more realistic for the various participants of the CERT team. So, the zombie squad. so we get made up, and they're putting like globs of petroleum jelly on my arm and covering it with like a little tissue and then dusting it. And it's making these big blister burns up and down my arms. They determined that I was going to be a burn victim. And so the card I had drawn as far as injuries was burn victim and broken back in a car accident. And I'm like, wow, I'm pretty much dead man walking is what I was thinking. Only I wasn't walking. So they put me in a crashed car. They took the windshield and broke it. So I was covered in glass, and put the seatbelt on me, and told me that my back was broken and I couldn't move. And they had a big pan in the engine where the hood was, and the hood was removed, and they poured diesel fuel in there and they lit it on fire. And they said, stay here, wait for them to find you. It was warm. It was warm. It was so realistic that I literally had a shock trauma response and was shaking uncontrollably in that situation. It was wild. It was really wild. I don't have PTSD from it, but it was a very realistic scenario. But I think they tagged me. They tagged me and bagged me. So I was one of the losses. But I worked off my U. I got my citizenship demerit removed. Darlene, thank you very much. Glad you got to catch the show with Josh. Disaster makeup for the trips to the ER afterward. Have the disaster makeup for the trips to the ER. The more realistic, the better. The community response. Yeah, it was really good. I've dressed up for Halloween before and had a little face paint and fake blood. This was next level stuff. This was Hollywood level injuries. They had prosthetic injuries with compound fractures, and it was really cool stuff. It was really cool. Worked off of you by playing dead. Sounds dangerous. It was, because the guy who was putting out the fire, he first was standing in front of the car to spray, which blew the flames towards me, and the windshield had been broken, like they had smashed it in, so it broke. I guess they didn't want it to explode or crack with the heat of the fire, but they had smashed it in, so it was not completely across the window anymore. And when he was blowing the fire towards me, that fire was just coming up and right over the windshield. I think I lost some hair on that one. Let's see. Should have just a couple more minutes before we come back. Oh, look. Karen Reed has their OnlyFans back. It's in the big courtroom building that they're in. I like this expert. I want to see how he does under cross-examination. First of all, under the pressure, is he going to break? He's been fairly confident. He sort of directed the show. It was like, go to this picture, zoom in here. That's the area. He's been good that way. Under cross-examination, I don't think the defense attorney will want him to control the narrative. And so I think there's going to be some jockeying for position in the questioning. And you'll see a lot of more yes, no, try to pin him down to specific answers, especially ones that highlight the areas where he doesn't know or he isn't able to make a conclusion. So you'll hear probably towards the end, when they do end, he's going to focus on, you can't say who started this fire. You don't know the actual cause of the fire. You can only speculate that it could have been a couple things, right? Why did I have to pick a chore? High school, bad citizenship scores. I had to work them off. Did I tell you the math teacher story? Okay, if they take a while, I might have time to tell this. My math class in high school, my math teacher hated me. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because I just didn't care about school, and I was like, C's get degrees was my mentality. And so I wouldn't study and I wouldn't pay very close attention in class. And she would like start calling me out for not looking at her while she's up explaining things on the board. I'm like, look, I can hear you. I know enough. I can pass this class. And so she'd call me out. And so I started paying attention to her, and I would do this. I would watch her like this as she's up on the board and as she's walking around. And I can hold my eyes in a crossed pattern like this indefinitely. I don't know. It's a skill. It's an ability. I was born with this, but I would do that. And I would stay there and watch her, and she'd be like, is there something wrong with your eyes, Scott? I'm like, no, is there something wrong with yours? And so she didn't like me. She gave me a U. She would give out candy bars to the person who got the highest score on the test. And I thought, it would be really funny. Let me just get the highest score on the test, and then she'll have to give me a candy bar. And that would just chap her hide so badly. I mean, I don't want the candy bar. I just want her to have to be like, and Scott's the winner, yay. And so I studied, exerted myself a little bit, put some effort in, and I aced the next test. And then she decided, as she's handing out the scores, that she's done doing the candy bars. She's not going to be giving out candy bars to the winners anymore, starting today. So I did not get a candy bar. So the next test, in addition to doing just enough to pass the test, I took my pencil and I circled letters on the test that were not in the answers. Like, I circled letters in the questions because there were lots of word problems. And if you take the letters that I circle and put them in order, like as if you were starting at the top of the page and reading and circling the letters, you could see that the letters might possibly spell an acronym. Think of the trees, okay? Think of my trees. Yes, the FU trees. That's what it may have spelled if you read it like that. So I turned my test in. I get called to the principal's office.
Please be seated.
I'll have to tell you the rest after this.
Back on the record, any matters to address before we bring in the jury, counsel?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, we'll bring in the jury.
Get called to the principal's office. The principal calls my mom on the phone. I'm sitting there, and he's on the phone with my mom. He's like, your son has been circling letters on a test. She's like, isn't that what he's supposed to do? Yeah, but some of these letters, if you look at them and put them together, they could be an acronym for a swear word. And my mom's just like silent. She's like, you called me for that? And the principal's like, and she's like, call me if you have any real problems with him. There's no problem there. And it was the funniest thing ever. It was so funny. I'm like, yeah, mom's got my back. Of course, when I got home, she's like, don't you ever do that again. So anyway, so that was one of my U's. So I circled letters on the test, and that teacher gave me an F and a U in that class. So we exchanged letters.
Welcome back, jury. And sir, you're reminded that you're still under oath.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Mueller, cross.
Thank you.
Here we go. Buckle up. Oh, he's got his easel out. Let's see if he wants to bring his Post-it notes up.
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
You and I have met before one time, correct?
Yes.
June of 2001?
I'll take your word for the date.
Okay, I'll give you take my word as the 16th and 17th of June 2021, now one.
That sounds correct.
And I asked you a bunch of questions, right?
Yes.
And you were under oath?
Yes.
And you told me the truth?
Yes.
Under penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Right.
Sophomore.
So we look back at that testimony, we can take that as the truth. Fair?
Depends on how much you take of it.
I'm sorry?
Depends on what you take on it, but yes, it's the truth.
Okay. Can we agree as we start here, if you don't have a cause of the fire as being suggesting an intentional fire, intentionally set fire, we don't have a crime of arson?
That is correct.
Okay. And we'll talk about the classifications, but you and I talked about that before, right?
Yes.
There are 4 classifications of fires.
I guess we need to clarify with her from where he's referring.
Council knows, or
well, there's.
knows.
It depends if you're talking about under the.
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll allow it if you understand the
Thank
question.
you. Let me break this down. You and I have talked about this before, right? There's an accidental fire, correct?
Correct.
That could be a toaster burned up. Fair?
Yes.
We have natural causes of fires. That would be lightning strikes, that kind of thing, right?
Correct.
Then we have
Volcanoes.
what's called undetermined.
Correct.
You just can't tell, right?
Correct.
And sometimes the damage is so big and so much that you can't tell, right?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. And it's not an embarrassment to you as a fire origin and cause expert to be able to say, I just can't tell. There's not enough here.
That's
Fair?
correct.
It wouldn't be embarrassing to you, right?
That's correct.
In fact, it would probably be intellectually honest to admit, I just can't tell. Fair?
That is correct.
Then we have an intentional or an incendiary fire, it's called, right?
Correct.
And that would be, excuse me, correct me if I'm wrong, but an intentionally set fire under circumstances where a fire shouldn't happen.
Yes.
And that's what you're calling this.
Correct.
An incendiary fire.
Yes.
And that's the one that supports a crime.
Correct.
And out of those 4 categories, only an incendiary fire supports crime, correct?
Not necessarily.
If you can't, let's go back to
No.
one thing.
Okay. Not necessarily. The crimes can be prosecuted with an undetermined cause. I've seen it in the past.
Okay. If you don't have a cause of a fire, you can't find the classification of the fire. Fair? You can't tell what
Correct.
happened. You said the origin is the where, correct?
Correct.
And the cause is the why.
Correct.
And if you don't have the why, you can't say a crime occurred. Fair?
I don't make the determination if a crime has occurred.
If arson, I'm just talking about arson.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. I think we're asking for legal conclusions at this point in time. Prosecutor's office could charge a crime based on an undetermined fire. He's already testified to it, so I think we got to ask an answer. But also, we're asking for legal conclusions.
The question is simply, if you don't have the cause, the why, you
Judge,
can't even
step
classify the fire.
Judge, step in.
You can't even classify the fire because you can't tell why it happened, right?
Well, the classification you just said was undetermined.
You can't tell why a fire happened. You can't classify it, right?
Objection, ask an answer.
Yeah, I didn't get an answer for him.
Yeah, I'll allow it. I
Yes
just
or no?
have the answer.
If I can't tell the why, then it would be classified as an undetermined fire.
Okay.
What do we have?
Let's talk about this excavation you said that you did, all right, on January 8th.
Yes.
On January 8th, you did an excavation, and as we know, the living room was the area of origin, correct?
Correct.
I'm going to show you.
You concede that.
This as Exhibit O, floor plan of the living room. You've seen this before, right?
I have not.
Does that represent to you what the floor plan of the house looked like?
Yes.
Okay. And you know that the living room, as you said, was the area of origin of the fire, right?
Correct.
And you excavated that to get important data.
I excavated the basement that was below the living room.
The living room you showed us on that aerial photo had collapsed into the basement.
Correct.
So anything regarding the living room would have been in the basement.
Correct.
And you've testified that that was 2 feet of rubble, correct?
I didn't say 2 feet of rubble.
Okay, let's look.
You might have said 2 feet of rubble previously.
If I may approach, Your Honor? Thank you. I've got your prior testimony from this case. Why don't we look at the part that says Daubert 1? Okay.
Daubert.
I guess if I can, Your Honor, as to the form of the way the question's being asked, is he asking about 2 feet of rubble today or now at the previous hearing? I think is where we're going, but I think it's confusing question.
You have testified that the area.
If you could just clarify what he's saying now, and then are you pursuing prior inconsistent or?
You're
refresh
telling us
memory?
you don't know how deep the rubble was in the basement that you excavated?
No, you asked me if I testified to 2 feet of rubble.
Do you admit there's 2 feet of rubble in the basement?
Approximately 2 feet of rubble. That's an approximation. I never measured it.
Could be 3.
I never measured it.
Okay. If there's 2 feet of rubble, and we know from the living room that it's 18 by 18, you see that?
Yes.
Yes?
Between the 118.
18 feet. This was 18 feet.
Okay.
And there's a little bit more. You'd have to add the area too, right?
Yes.
Do you know how to do that? Calculate that area?
Yes.
Sines, cosines, tangents, Pythagorean theorem?
I'm aware of how to do.
Do you?
Area.
Mr. Attorney?
Can we agree, like we had before, that it's about the total 20 by 20, roughly?
I'm just looking at the 118, and there's no 18, but that's, 18. Yes, that's 18 by 18 with a little bit left. I didn't see the 18 at the bottom.
Okay, we say roughly 20 by 20?
20 by 20 minus one of those little
Yes.
triangles.
Now.
Times 2.
That's the area of origin, correct?
Yes.
And if we talk about a 20 by 20, if we measure from you roughly about to that first row, it's about 20 feet.
I don't know how far that is. 20, the first row? That's a little further than that, I think. But you have the measuring tape.
Would you like to hold the one and we'll measure it? Thank you. If I may.
Yeah, here we go. This is better than
Oops,
the part.
sorry.
The
I actually
frying-
didn't mean to do that.
She snapped his
That's
finger.
the dummy end of it.
That's the dummy end? Oh! Oh, what a zinger.
18, 19, and about 20 feet right here.
Okay?
We good?
Yep.
And if I told you that 20 feet was about... Thank you. I'll go. From the jury box to about here.
Approximately.
So we have an area of origin in the living room of this whole area here, correct?
Correct.
It's a big room.
You can't narrow it down where the fire started amongst anywhere in here,
I
correct?
cannot.
Could have started over in this area over here, right? Could have started by the fireplace.
Not against the fireplace.
But anywhere in here, you don't know.
Correct.
But you dug out the rubble, right?
Yes.
In this 18 by 20 by 20 spot, right?
Yes.
2 feet of rubble, correct?
Approximately.
And you had a person with you, Greg Stormzan from the Michigan State Police?
Yes.
And you deposited the rubble, as I believe, on the west side and the back side of the house, correct?
I would have, yes.
Well, you did, correct?
Yes.
Put it on the west side of the house?
Yes.
And you cleared the basement, because that's how you do it, right?
Not the entire basement, just the area underneath the living room.
So there would be basically a clear area of 18 by 18 in that house if somebody came after you, correct?
Yes.
You made this rubble pile, and this rubble pile should be, well, if we say 20 by 20 by 2, that's 800 cubic feet, right?
No. That's not how it works.
I don't know how much the rubble pile would have been.
Well, you didn't do 800 cubic feet of excavation and put that outside, did you?
I have no idea.
Did you create a rubble pile of approximately 4 feet by 8 feet and 7 feet high?
It was not a 7-foot high pile.
Let's go to your testimony at that Dalbert hearing on 162, lines 7 to 11.
Your Honor, will you approach real quick? Thank you.
Okay, he's trying to catch our witness in saying something differently, he said today, than his Dalbert hearing, which is where they wanted to see if they were going to allow him in as an expert witness previous to the first trial, I believe. It might have been the second. I think it was the first trial. So if they can catch him saying something a little differently this time, then he's made a mistake. If he's made a mistake because he made another mistake.
On the first page, yes. Dalbert 1, yes.
Well, just prior hearing on page 162 at line 7. You with me?
(162) line. What line?
Line 7.
Line 7.
You had been asked, so outside the house was the area that you laid all the debris, correct?
Yes.
Your answer. Again, we didn't lay it out, so it was placed in a pile. The pile, in my recollection, would probably have been 3 or 4 feet by 6 or 8 feet and 7 feet high. But I don't have a great recollection of the size of the pile after we excavated, right?
Correct.
Okay. So if somebody came after you, were there on the 8th, like somebody on the 15th a week later, we should see behind the house a picture of a 4-foot by 8-foot by 7-foot high pile of rubble.
I have no idea what the rubble pile would look like after I left.
Well, do you think somebody would have taken it and moved it?
No, but it's possible.
You think somebody would have put it back in the house?
I have no idea.
Okay. The pile that you had the rubble that you would have been removing, and I'm going to show you Defendant's Exhibit B. Tell me, these are your photos.
Your Honor, reviewing all of his photos or just a selection of the photographs?
Select photos. 15. The ones I gave you yesterday, Council.
No, I understand that. Are they just
They are select photos, not every photo.
I respect that and I understand that. Are they separated from a giant exhibit of other photographs, or are they just...
They are in Exhibit B by themselves. You tell me if those are your photos.
So you want him to review the entire binder right now?
No,
Oh,
they're just
okay.
15 photos.
Which 15 though?
Hold on, I want to make sure. Is this Exhibit B? I will once.
See, this defense tactic
You know
is
which
working.
ones to look at?
Snarky.
Yes.
It's defensive.
These are the photos look like that have been previously entered into evidence by the prosecution.
Some are the same, some are different.
Looks like 47 under B is the same as defense 34-9. But this one's very dark. Okay. Would you like me to continue? Would you like me to continue through B on photos?
Please.
Okay, this is...
All those photos you identified for the prosecutor, you had reviewed your photos before this trial, right?
Yes.
And you identified those easily as your photos, right?
Correct.
And a lot of these are just duplicates of your photos.
But I'm going to make sure.
So determine that.
Defense actually likes where they have the witness right now.
56 is
the witness has
the
become
same
hostile,
photo as
so they can,
34-11 with the
They
prosecution.
can present something, and the witness will not want to agree. And if they can trick him into presenting something that the witness actually testified to previously, then they can impeach him.
57 is one of my photos, but not with the prosecution exhibits. '58 is one of my photos. It's in the prosecution exhibit 34-12. '59 is my photo that is the same as People's 34-10.
If he takes a while, I'll just play it for you, Red Pen, and you can like Shazam it. Does that work? Can somebody Shazam this music for...
61 looks to be the same as People's 34-18.
Here we go.
'62 is one of my photos that is not in the People's exhibit.
Somebody get the song name from this? There we go. Thank you very much. Willie H. You were quick. Angel Lover? Ooh.
75 is the same as People's 34-25.
Once took a music class in high school. It was actually a radio class, but we talked about music a lot. And the professor would play a song I'd been in with class.
96 is one of my photos and is similar to People's 34-13. I think this might be a different photo of the same shot.
He was an old DJ and he loved music, and he'd give like extra credit to somebody who could name the song. I discovered Shazam, and he never knew about it, and I knew every single song. He thought I was just like a music aficionado. I'd Shazam every single song on my phone. Right now, we're talking about if the pictures the defense gave him match the pictures the prosecution.
123 is the same as People's 3421. .138 is one of my photos, but not in the prosecution photos.
Okay.
And that finishes up B.
That's all. Move for the admission of Exhibit B, 1 through 15.
Objection.
What'd you say, 15?
15.
1 through 15.
Thank you. So if we look at page, photograph 62 there,
we're going to see
you
more
can look up on the
spice here.
screen if you'd like.
Here it comes.
We can see. Good?
Yes.
We can see that fireplace in the basement, right?
Yes.
Right here. So basically what we're showing is the living room area, and the living room extends out toward the bay window to the left.
No,
right?
this photo is taken from underneath the bay window.
Okay. You're saying the fireplace is directly across from the bay window. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Where you have the FP on your drawing.
What I'm seeing then is entirely the living room.
Yes.
Now,
Or the basement under the living room.
the living room that had collapsed and have the 2 feet of rubble that you excavated and cleared, you and Mr. Stormzang.
Yes.
Okay. So, if somebody like Mr. Shinsky came and Mr. Shinsky took a photo a few days later, what we should see is photo of the back of the house where you laid it out, right? Am I correct?
Yes.
And what we should see somewhere in here, in the back west side, is a pile 7 feet by 8 feet by 7 feet high, correct?
I do not see that there.
You certainly don't. You also didn't document the excavation, did you?
I did not take a photograph of the excavation once completed. That is a mistake that I have admitted to, and it's a mistake on my part.
Okay. You know the importance of documentation, correct?
Correct.
Important for corroboration, correct?
I've got some.
Okay.
It's important for corroboration, correct?
It is important to document the scene.
Because you want to have corroboration in case somebody asks you, did you actually do some excavation? You want to be able to show proof.
Correct.
That's called corroboration. True?
That's you can call it that.
Okay. You didn't take any photographs, right?
What do you mean didn't take any photographs?
Excavation.
Yes, I
You didn't write in your report, your official Michigan State Police report, anything about an excavation, correct?
I think there may have been a section, but without reviewing my report, I can't be sure.
Well, did you testify in a hearing that you didn't document it in your report?
I may have.
And if you testified in that hearing, that would have been under oath?
Correct.
And you had reviewed your file?
Correct.
And you reviewed your report?
Correct.
And you told us the truth when you told us you didn't put it in your report?
Correct.
You also didn't even take any notes during your whole scene inspection, did you?
What is your definition of notes?
Well, things like the jury was taking down to document you did what you did. Did you take any notes, yes or no?
I dictated the scene examination directly into the report on a recorder. For years, been doing this 20 years, I typically don't take copious written notes on scene examination.
Okay. We don't have anything contemporaneous in terms of any notes of yours of the excavation itself, fair?
There are no notes of the excavation.
Okay. Even though that's such a critical aspect of fire investigation.
The notes aren't critical. It's the information in the report that's critical.
The excavation is critical in a fire excavation. True?
Did you say an excavation is important in an excavation?
Yes, he did.
The excavation process in a fire investigation is critical. Am I right?
Yes.
Because that's where you get the evidence that might show how the fire progressed.
That is a step that may develop evidence.
And that is a step where you collect data, it's called.
Yes.
And that data will help you find evidence that might point to the why, the cause.
Possibly.
You can't overlook doing an excavation when you're doing a fire investigation, right?
Depends on the fire investigation.
You testified that, correct me if I'm wrong, that the reason you didn't take any photographs, make any notes, is because it was a long day that day.
I never said anything about notes. I did testify that there's no photographs that should have been taken. I don't know why I didn't take it. It's possible it was a long day, and because we didn't find anything of notable significance in the excavation, that it's possible I forgot to take the photograph.
Well,
photographs of post-excavation.
Let me see if you turn to D2 there.
We're talking transcripts again?
Your book of the transcripts?
D2, what is that?
Last one. Last tab.
So when you say D, you're referring to Dauber, correct?
You can read from page 42 to yourself, line 13 to 16.
And I'm sorry, I didn't hear the expression read out loud, or?
To yourself.
Okay.
Read out loud.
42 to what lines?
Line 13 to 16.
Yes.
Okay. Does that refresh your memory that the reason you forgot to take a photograph or note your documentation was because it was a long day?
It does. Possible a long day.
You were tired?
Yes.
After a long day?
Yes.
Okay. So you didn't document this critical aspect because you were tired because it was a long day. Fair?
Sustained.
Let me ask you something. You've trained fire investigators, right?
I have.
Okay. If you had a rookie fire investigator you were training, would you accept such a poor excuse as, boss, I didn't do what I was supposed to do and take any pictures and notes because it was a long day. I was tired.
What do you mean accept it? Of course I would. Because if that's what happened, you're going to accept it.
Wouldn't you maybe ask that person, why didn't you go back the next day?
We're calling for speculation, Your Honor. Objection.
Thank you. You would ask that.
I don't know what I would say, because it depends on the scene. Everything depends on the scene.
If he says that I didn't do it because it was a long day and I was tired, and he's a rookie investigator, you would ask him, why didn't you go back the next day?
Well, I'll allow this one.
Thank you. True?
I don't know what I would say.
Okay. Is there a law that says you can only go and do a scene investigation one day?
No.
Is there any Michigan State Police policy that says you can do a scene investigation only once?
No.
Okay. And after you were the law enforcement person responsible for the scene in terms of the fire investigation, right?
In terms of the fire investigation.
So after January 8th, you didn't come back anymore?
I did not.
And you released the scene to people like Mr. Shinsky, right?
Correct.
And Len McHugh, do you know him?
Yes.
He was on the scene a couple days after you?
Yes.
Right. Now, I want to talk a little bit about your origin and the bases for your origin opinion. You went through a whole lot of things about how you ruled out various areas in the house, right?
Correct.
And if we look at the New York skyline,
He's using Apple TV.
let me get back in here. If we look at your investigation,
You can see the Apple TV next to the prosecution lady by her elbow.
I'll get it back in a second. You did the physical investigation, all the physical evidence led you to the area of origin in the living room, correct?
All the data.
All the data. All the data, including what you said was very important information from Linda Stermer, correct?
Correct.
Linda Stermer told you that she was in the basement, am I right?
I've never talked to Linda Stermer.
You read a statement that Mr. Shinsky took an interview.
Yes.
But you relied on it, obviously.
Yes.
And she said she's in the basement doing laundry. Yes.
Correct.
She hears this horrible scream upstairs, right?
Correct.
She runs upstairs.
Correct.
She sees the living room on fire.
Correct.
She sees her husband on fire by the bedroom, you said, right?
Correct.
Okay. Have you ever burned yourself on a stove or anything in your life?
Yes.
Okay. That pain is immediate, isn't it?
Yes. But I'm not a medical expert. I can't testify to that.
You certainly can testify to your own experience that the pain was immediate to you, right?
Yes.
I'm not trying to be funny with you. Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
I don't think that's appropriate.
I'm not clear what that last dialogue was about.
He's smirking.
Okay, well, you're being argumentative, so move on, please.
You've had burns, and they were immediate, correct?
Correct.
And they were painful, correct?
Correct.
So, one of the things that NFPA cautions you is if you have a hypothesis that violates the laws of physics, that's an invalid hypothesis, right?
I'm not aware of that section, but proceed.
Okay. One of the rules of physics, we talked about Newton's laws of motion.
Yes.
Before.
No objection, Your Honor. I think we're getting into areas that's not proper for trial at this point in time. Newton's laws of motion. This is physics. He's not a physics professor.
He's familiar with it, and we agreed.
I'll allow some,
Thank you.
but I assume
Sir,
there's some relevance where you're going.
One fundamental law is you can't be in two places at the same time, can you?
Correct.
So, if Linda Stermer is in the basement and she hears a scream and that burn injury is immediate, that means Todd Stermer caught fire and Linda was in a different room, correct?
Correct.
Now, let's talk about some of the fundamentals of being an expert witness. One of the purposes, or one of the things you have to do is obviously collect all the relevant data, correct?
Data.
Correct all the relative data that's available.
Relevant data.
Relevant data that's available.
That is available to you. What's available to you are witness statements, right?
Yes.
You can interview witnesses, nothing stops you.
No.
You can go to building departments.
Correct.
To get house records.
Correct.
Right? Do a lot of things that aren't just physically at the inspection site.
Correct.
And that's all data gathering.
Correct.
You can agree with me that in your fire investigation, you have to comply with the scientific method, correct?
Correct.
And you described that for us.
Correct.
I'm going to show you what is proposed. Exhibit D. You've seen this before?
Yes.
It's in your NFPA 921 book?
Correct.
And it's what you follow?
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
And that's what you used in this case?
Correct.
And this is what you followed in this case, correct?
Correct.
And this would illustrate the steps for the jury, correct?
Correct.
All right, I move for the admission of Exhibit D.
Object is relevance, Your Honor. It's also, I don't see why it's relevant to put this. Can we not display it to the jury until the court's admitted it?
I'll admit that. I think it's relevant. I think the foundation's
Obviously, the first
What is your marking on that? What is
Exhibit
it?
D.
D.
bottom.
Obviously, you said the
spilled
first
on
two
it.
steps are kind of the same in everything you do, every assignment. Find the
spilled coffee
origin
on
and
it.
cause of the fire.
Correct.
So the real work starts when we're talking about collecting data, correct?
Correct.
When we collect data, you gather all the relevant evidence that you can to try to help you come to a conclusion, right?
Correct.
The next step is you analyze all the data that you've collected, correct?
Correct.
Then once you've analyzed that data, then you develop a hypothesis based on, here's the evidence I have, could it be this?
Correct.
Then you test the hypothesis, right?
Correct.
To disprove the hypothesis, correct?
To prove or disprove, both.
You're telling our jury that it's to prove it or disprove it.
When you're testing hypothesis, yes. To try to disprove it, yes.
If you can't rule it out, can't rule out a hypothesis, then you have to collect more data or develop another hypothesis, right?
Love it.
Say that again.
If you can't rule out a hypothesis based on the data, then you either have to get more data or develop a new hypothesis. Isn't that what NFPA 921 tells you?
Or, so you've jumped down to testing the hypothesis, correct?
We're on testing hypothesis.
Okay. So you're testing the hypothesis to see not just if it's ruled out, but also if it's ruled in. You're testing it to see if it is, if the hypothesis is ruled out, then it's not a valid hypothesis.
It's an invalid hypothesis.
Correct.
Because you're able to rule it out from the
data.
From the data.
Correct.
And in this case, if the hypothesis was Linda Stermer was with Todd Stermer and somehow got gasoline on him, you're able to rule that out with the data, reliable data that you had that she was in the basement.
That was never a hypothesis of mine.
I'm asking, you're an expert witness. If the hypothesis is that Linda Stermer somehow did something with gasoline that caused Todd to be on fire.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. Can we vote, please?
Wow. The state has to go. I mean, the defense has to attack this guy. This is one of the big keys problems with the for them in the defense of Linda Stermer. They need to get this testimony beaten up, scratched up, disfigured. We have to shake that in some way to make it look like there's room for doubt. So they're trying hard to say that if she was down in the basement when she heard him scream, then clearly she couldn't have been the one that was upstairs lighting him on fire. Well, that's assuming that the fire was lit as she poured the gasoline. If you poured the gasoline, went down, waited for the vapors to flash, that's different. And it's assuming she's telling the truth in this version of her story.
So, you're an expert witness. You're an expert in fire investigation. You develop hypotheses, right?
Correct.
And you measure it against the reliable data, correct?
Correct.
The reliable data you had, as we talked about, was Linda was in the basement at the time she heard Todd yell.
Correct.
Assuming he's on fire, correct?
He's yelling and a fire is discovered on him.
Okay. If the hypothesis is Linda was with Todd Stermer and somehow got gasoline on him, that's ruled out by your reliable data that she was in the basement.
That specific hypothesis, correct.
No. No.
And there's other data that would suggest that Linda didn't have anything to do with any gasoline, isn't there?
I'm not aware of that hypothesis.
Well, how about Linda's clothes tested negative for gasoline?
Well, do you want me to...
Are you aware of that?
I am, and I'm aware of other data.
I want you to answer my questions. You're aware that Linda's clothes tested negative for gasoline, correct?
That is true.
You are aware that the Michigan State Police brought a canine in, and the canine did not...
I'm going to object. That's for hearsay, Your Honor. It's not evidence.
He's relied on that collection of data, and including canine evidence. It's in his report.
Now we're talking 703, just like we've been dealing with all over this. That facts are not evidence.
I'll sustain that objection.
Did they open the door?
You rely on all kinds of data when you're developing your hypotheses, right?
Correct.
One of the pieces of data that you rely on is testing.
Lab testing, correct.
Lab testing. And you also rely on things like Michigan State Police canine experts being called to the scene. True?
Your Honor, I guess we're dancing around the subject again here. I'm going to object as relevance.
Relevance? It goes directly to the issue of
I've
relevance.
already sustained the objection, Mr. Mueller. You can move on.
Were you present when there was a canine?
Objection, Your Honor.
Mr. Mueller, I've sustained the objection.
Okay. Are you aware, well, you were aware of the gray sweatpants, right?
Mr. Stermer's gray sweatpants?
Yes. You
Yes.
collected it?
Yes.
All right. Are you aware that they were 100% polyester?
I was not aware.
Data you could have collected.
It is possible.
Have you, in your past experience, tested the flammability of materials?
You object. I don't think he's an expert in textiles, Your Honor.
I'm just asking for his experience.
I think it's fair and within the range of his expertise. I'll overrule.
Go ahead.
I have not tested, I do not recall testing flammability of polyester.
You've tested materials.
I have not tested materials.
Are you aware of what polyester is?
It's a synthetic material.
Synthetic material made of plastics?
Plastic polymers, correct.
Okay. And you understand that it doesn't just burn, it melts.
It can burn and melt at the same time.
Okay. So we talked about collecting relevant data. Then we also have, as one of the main aspects of being an expert witness and an expert in general, is you have to keep kind of like an open book policy of document all your investigative techniques, correct?
I don't understand what you're asking.
You told us about the importance of documentation.
Correct.
And the importance of documentation is so others can review your work.
Correct.
And then you can defend your work if people are criticizing it.
That's a portion of documentation, yes.
Portion of documentation is your peers are going to review it, right?
Yes.
Your colleagues.
Possibly.
And if you've said there was an intentional fire and you think it's arson, there becomes a criminal case, well, the defendant's expert needs to look at it as well.
I never called it arson, I call it incendiary.
Listen to me carefully. If you call something arson and it results in a...
I'm going to object. We've established that as a legal conclusion, and we should not be talking about that in this case.
I agree. I'll sustain that objection.
Okay. If your opinions result in a criminal charge, the suspect or the defendant has a right to look at your stuff.
Correct.
And it needs to be complete.
They can look at all of my material.
And it needs to be complete and thorough.
They can look at all my material as is.
So they can compare what you're saying you did to what you did by your documents. Corroboration again, right?
Okay, correct.
So we don't just have to take your word for it, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then finally, you have to kind of make a good faith effort, play devil's advocate with yourself, right?
Correct.
How could I be wrong, right?
Correct.
Did I miss something?
Correct.
And you did all that in this case?
Yes.
To rule out all the things that you ruled out?
To rule out as many of the things that I could think of and that I had indications of.
Now let's talk about one thing here. This 921 book is...
It's got an actual copy?
The primary training guide for all fire investigations, correct?
It is the main text for training.
It is the main text that you've trained to, fair?
Yes.
It is the text that they test on when you've tested for certifications, right?
Correct.
So you've trained to this 921, you've tested this 921, and when you've taught young firefighters or fire investigators, you teach out of this book, correct?
That is one of the books.
One of the books. There are others.
There are others.
There are kind of authoritative reference guides?
Yes.
One might be the user's manual for 921.
That may be one.
One might be
One
me.
might be Kirk's fire investigation. We've seen that.
Yes.
You have that?
I don't know if I have the newest copy, but I have a copy.
You have a copy.
It might be Anarchist Cookbook.
John Lentini's book, Scientific Protocols for Fire Investigation. That's a reference guide.
That is a reference guide.
Well, somebody's showing
Have
off
you
they
used
went
it?
to the library.
I can't think if I have.
Do you own it?
I do not own that one.
All these are resources for you to go to if you have questions regarding your field, right?
Correct.
And then, of course, I think the main guide for you would be a code of ethics, right? And how you do your work.
There's a personal code of ethics. Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you what we've marked as proposed Exhibit L. See if you recognize that. And you can tell us what it is.
This is a quote from the IAAI Code of Ethics that is no longer valid because there's been an update.
An update. You believe it to your core, don't you?
What?
You believe this statement to your core, don't you?
The outdated statement?
Yes.
I don't know, Jack. I think he just establishes an outdated statement.
It's what?
Relevance if it's outdated.
Because it goes to his code of ethics that he believes in. Whether it's outdated or not, he still believes
Maybe
in the
you can
statement.
inquire of him how it's outdated, in what way, what's different.
Do you know why it's different now?
Yes, the IAAI committee met and updated the Code of Ethics in 2020.
Okay.
I have a copy if you'd like.
Do you believe in the principle, I'm just going to ask you that, do you believe in the principle that you should be a truth seeker and not a case maker?
Yes.
You believe that to your core?
I don't use those word core, but yes, I believe it.
Let's go to your D1 hearing at page 66.
I'm going to use the words to my core.
Let me know when you're there.
Say 56?
66.
66.
It's good stuff today. I'm loving it.
Yes. D1, Daubert 1, page 66.
66. And we, from line 1 to 9.
Your Honor, I'm going to object because this questioning is based on the outdated statement.
That he said he believes in, Your Honor. I'm asking if he believes in a principle. It's simple.
He's basing it on prior testimony, so I'll allow it.
Go ahead.
Which lines you want to review again?
1 through 11.
Yes. Yes. On line 9, my answer to that same question is I believe it to my core.
Correct. And what that means is being a truth seeker is you are not here to just get a conviction, right?
I am not here just to get a conviction.
You're here to supposed to offer your objective opinion.
I am here.
It's supposed to offer an opinion. Form of the question.
Argumentative, Mr. Mueller.
Pardon?
It's argumentative.
You are here to offer your objective opinion.
I am.
Okay. Which means you'd be open to new evidence if you hear it.
I would listen to all relative evidence.
Relevant.
And be open to new evidence and change your mind if it drives you that way, right?
If it was properly produced and researched.
Okay. Now, can we agree that if you don't collect the data, you're violating the scientific method?
Available data.
If you don't collect all available data, you're violating scientific method.
And I'm going to go with that's relevant data. Clearly, there's an infinite amount of data out there, so it needs to be relevant data.
Well, you can't determine what's relevant until you collect the data. Then you decide. That's part of the analyzing, right? This is important, that's important.
But there's a portion of common sense of data collection.
Isn't it true That if you don't collect all the relevant data, you're violating scientific method.
Objection asked and answered.
It is asked and answered, Mr. Miller.
I think it was a simple yes or no question.
It's asked and answered.
I think he's answered it already.
Okay. If you don't analyze the data, you violate the scientific method, yes or no. We're on analyzing data, the next step.
It's a little different, but you can ask one more time.
Yes or no.
Correct. You must analyze the data.
If you don't develop hypotheses based on analyzing the data, you violated the scientific method, correct?
You must develop hypotheses or theories.
If you don't, then you violated the scientific method.
Correct.
And if you don't test those hypotheses, you're violating the scientific method.
Correct.
And if you fail to consider alternate hypotheses, you violate the scientific method.
Reliable alternative hypothesis.
Then you violate the scientific method.
Correct.
If you violate the scientific method, you have an unreliable methodology, don't you?
Correct.
Right. Which means unreliable can't be relied upon, correct?
Correct.
To rely, to have confidence in, to trust, right?
Now you have to get him to say
Correct.
he violated the method.
And if you don't have a reliable methodology, then you don't have a reliable opinion, do you?
I think this has been asked and answered, Your Honor.
I haven't even asked it.
Yeah, it is asked and answered. I haven't moved on.
Look at that look. Asked that question ever.
Okay, one more time.
Thank you.
One more.
If you don't have a reliable methodology, you don't have a reliable opinion, do you?
Correct.
Okay. You've heard of the phrase garbage in equals garbage out?
I have heard that.
All right.
Yeah, this is a trap. He's laid the groundwork to now say if he says something he did was unreliable, then all this is thrown out. He's linked it all together and got the
Let's
witness
go
agree.
to your cause opinion. Are you comfortable that you've explained the cause of the fire to this jury?
Yes.
You wouldn't change it, would you?
No.
Okay. You know, and as I remember from my notes, the cause of the fire was the ignition source was an open flame.
Correct.
And then the first fuel ignited was gasoline.
Gasoline vapors.
Okay. And that's the cause of the fire.
Correct.
Which is why you then classified it as intentional.
Incendiary, yes.
Incendiary. Okay. Give me a second, Your Honor.
Time for Apple Play, AirPlay. If defense is able to draw this connection and get the witness to agree that his process was flawed, then by the witness's own logic, the conclusion is flawed and cannot be relied upon.
Mortimer, we're back. Let's go to NFPA 921. NFPA 921 speaks to cause, doesn't it? The causal factors.
Yes.
I'm curious what this is going to be before the jury sees this, because I'm not sure what we're specifically looking for.
I'll show you, and this is not an exhibit, Your Honor, it's for impeachment and learning treatise.
Well, then he can impeach him with it, but it can't be displayed to the jury. It's not an exhibit.
I can read it or show it to the jury. It just doesn't go back to the jury room as an exhibit.
Well, I'll allow it for
Thank you.
demonstrative, for cross, but it won't go back to the jury.
Right.
That's
Sir,
a big poster.
you recognize those causal factors?
Yes.
NFPA 921, the premier guide for your training, lists what has to be found and determined for the cause, correct?
Correct.
The ignition source, the first fuel ignited, everybody read that? And the circumstances that brought 1 and 2 together.
Correct.
Unless you have all 3, you don't have a cause of a fire, correct?
Correct.
Which means unless you have all 3, you don't have the why. Isn't that true?
The why of the cause of the fire?
Yes, that is the why.
Correct.
Okay. Let's go to 19.4.4.1. I'm happy to give you the book if you have it.
I do.
$143 book. Updated every couple of years. You have to keep buying it. It's a great business. You can get in on it.
Yes, 19.4.4.1.
Let me know when you're there.
Yes.
It says simply identifying a fuel or an ignition source by itself does not and cannot describe how a fire occurred. Did I read that correctly?
Fuel or ignition source.
Yes, that's an excerpt from that section.
Okay. That's what that says, right?
Correct.
So, what it's saying is, if we have 1 and 2 but not 3, we don't have the cause of a fire, correct?
Correct.
You've given 1 and 2 to the jury. You're comfortable with that conclusion. You didn't give 3 to the jury. You don't know the circumstances that brought that open flame to the gasoline in this 20 by 20 living room, do you?
I don't, but there's an exception in 921 that allows for that.
You don't have all 3 factors for the cause of a fire. Fair?
I do have all 3 factors.
You have the circumstances. You haven't given the jury the circumstances that brought the open flame and the gasoline together. The how. True?
That has not been discussed with the jury.
Okay. That was never discussed in your report, correct?
My report from 2007, it was
yes,
not.
The official Michigan State Police fire report of this case.
The language has changed since 2007 with these specific monikers?
Oh, you updated your report?
No, I did not.
Okay, in your report, you never listed even an open flame. We can go to your report.
I did not list an open flame.
So you did not list gasoline, or strike that. You did not list first fuel being gasoline. I did not. And you certainly didn't list in your official report the circumstances that brought those 2 together. Fair?
I did not.
Then you've testified on several occasions, right? In this case.
Correct.
Testified in 09, didn't you?
09, that would have been the first trial? Correct.
Your Honor, can we approach?
Well, we have a mistrial. We have a mistrial. Guys, hang on. That we have trouble. Look at the look on the lady attorney's face. She's like, uh-oh. We have a problem. We're now going to either try to cram the poop back in the horse, unsqueeze the toothpaste, or unring the bell. Which is your option? We weren't supposed to say first trial. We weren't supposed to say first trial. Did the lawyer open the door? First trial were the bad words. They were the naughty words here. He brought up 09. The witness asked for clarification. I don't think the judge is going to grant a mistrial on that. See if there's a curative instruction.
You testified, excuse me, in a prior hearing in 2009, and you laid out what you said was the cause of the fire, right?
Yes.
And you didn't mention one time an ignition source being open flame.
I can't remember what my testimony was on that.
Well, let's look at what's called PE. PE in your binder?
I've got multiple. This binder?
Transcript binder?
You see one that says PE on it?
What does PE stand for? Wrong answers only. Keep it family friendly.
The 09, correct?
Called PE, I think.
It doesn't say PE.
Oh, sorry.
But it says 09.
All
right.
Direct your attention to page 49.
Yes.
Okay. You listed as the cause of the fire time of day, right?
Time, yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Time of day, condition of the known people in the house, which means basically able-bodied people.
Correct.
And you said the fire started very rapidly, larger and more rapidly than an accident fire could have started.
Correct.
And then you tied it in with gasoline on Mr. Stermer's sweatpants, right?
Correct.
Which then caused you to say it's an intentional fire.
Correct.
All right. So when you testified that didn't lay out the circumstances that brought anything together, correct?
Correct, but there's still an exception.
You can clear that up. You did not mention any of the circumstances, fair?
Correct.
Okay. Then you testified in 2010 and went through the same thing and never mentioned an ignition source of open flame, correct?
Correct.
Never mentioned.
Well, I don't know. I don't recall my testimony verbatim from 2010.
Okay. Right. Do you recall that the first time when I asked you, the first time you testified to an open flame and gasoline as an ignition, first fuel ignited, was in our hearing in 2021?
I recall that testimony.
Okay.
That being discussed in the testimony, I don't recall if that was the first time that was mentioned.
In fact, to this date, in 18 years, you've never set forth in a report or testimony the circumstances that brought forth your open flame gasoline, correct?
I think I just did it today in testimony.
Didn't you just tell us you did 1 and 2, but not 3?
No, that I haven't explained. There's an exception for the 3 with the 1 and 2 being brought together.
You did not, in any direct testimony, set forth the circumstances that brought 1 and 2 together.
Objection hasn't answered.
He keeps disputing that he did.
Because you won't let him answer the question, Your Honor.
It's asked and answered.
Thank you.
Because you won't let him answer the question.
Now, in terms of, you certainly know the difference as to what a causal factor is in terms of an ignition source, correct?
Causal factor, yes.
Yes, that's ignition source and first fuel.
Correct.
And you've been under oath saying that the time of day was a causal factor, correct?
I've never used the word causal factor.
It was a cause of the fire.
No, it was a circumstance of the fire.
Is there anywhere in NFPA 921 that says time of day is a cause of the fire?
No.
There's no reference manual anywhere that you've been trained on that says time of day is a cause of the fire?
No.
Am I right?
Correct.
There's no authority that you've ever heard of that says time of day is a cause of the fire?
Correct.
Accidental fires happen all the time in the daytime, right?
Correct.
Okay. Then the next thing you had, and we can talk about that PE again at page 49, was 2 able-bodied people.
Correct.
Amanda, thank you.
Is there anything in NFPA 921, this principal guide, if there is, I'd like you to cite it for our jury and any peers who are watching, anything that says the condition of people are a cause of the fire?
It does not.
No authoritative guide, no somebody you look and respect has ever told you that, correct?
Correct.
You've never taught that, correct?
Correct.
You've never been tested where that was an answer as a cause of a fire. Two able-bodied people.
No.
Am I right?
Correct.
Able-bodied people die in fires all the time, unfortunately.
Correct.
Just like disabled people, like you told us, right?
Correct.
You didn't mention that you've investigated many fires involving able-bodied people who were seriously injured or died. Fair?
That is correct.
And then, of course, another factor you said in that preliminary hearing was the speed of the fire, correct?
Correct.
Now, you know, sir, from all your training and expertise, that how fast a fire progresses is based on a lot of different factors, right?
Correct.
One of the factors is the construction of the house.
That is one.
Because that depends on the fuel loads, right? That
more than just fuel loads. Depends on fuel loads, container size, room size, configuration.
Ivy, thank you very much.
Fire will spread faster if you have more ventilation. It takes oxygen to feed a fire.
Correct.
So it's not simply a fire was fast and therefore it had to be an accelerant. Fair?
That is fair.
And certainly you can't rely on eyewitness testimony, the subjective testimony of who it was burning fast.
Not by itself, no.
Right. You were aware that when some of the first witnesses showed up that they saw a fire coming through the roof on the north side of, not the north side of the house, on the back side of the house?
The west side, yes.
West side? Well, we don't have it here, right?
Correct.
By where the bay windows were?
It was, yeah, there were some statements of through the roof in the center of the house.
Don't put your exhibits by a furnace.
Your Honor, can I ask that we take some of these demonstrative exhibits down if they're not going to be used anymore?
Are you done with that one? What's on the screen?
Is there a fire hazard?
Is this something new coming out?
No, this is I can see what this is. This is fine.
Mr. Mueller, if you could give us the New York skyline, please.
I'll just go black. How about that?
This is a non-coffee spill.
Early witnesses said that the fire was coming out of the roof on the backside and toward the middle.
Correct.
Which one of the things you relied on.
Correct.
Right. And the fireplace would have been here and toward the center.
Correct.
Just so it says FP, right? Fireplace.
Correct.
You would have to collect data in terms of maybe how the house was constructed to have a better idea of analyzing that data and developing a hypothesis that why the fire you say was so fast.
Data was collected through observations.
Okay. There was other available data, correct?
There may have been.
And you had access to that available data, like building records, correct?
I assume I would have availability to building records. I did not look at any.
You chose not to.
I did not look at any.
You could have talked to Linda Stermer.
I could have.
You chose not to.
I did not.
That would have been obviously a very valuable source of data in terms of how the fire was, or the house was constructed. Fair?
Your Honor, can we approach really quickly because I want to be very mindful of what issue we're talking about here.
It's getting spicy. They're still trying to connect the dots to get the witness. They want the witness to use his own logic to discredit his own opinion. And it's a tricky thing to do with an expert because they're trained to not do this. They're trained to say everything to support their opinion. But they've already pointed out he did make some mistakes. He didn't take some pictures when he probably should have taken some pictures. It's something that he trains people to do, but he didn't do himself. And his excuse was just, hey, it was a long day.
Sir, were you, excuse me, were you aware that the entire living room floor was nothing but OSB subflooring?
I became aware. I can't tell you when.
Okay. Not as of January 12 when you issued your report, correct?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Let's get a timeline. January 7, the fire starts, or fire happens, right?
Correct.
January 7, you're on the scene.
Correct.
Take a couple pictures. And pictures of the body you showed and also pictures of the house.
Correct.
You took 46 pictures, would that be correct?
I don't know how many I took.
If I tell you you took 46 that night?
That sounds about right.
And then you took a total of 138, so you took from 47 to 138 the next day.
I took several pictures the next day.
Okay. And then, that was the 8th, and then the 12th, you learned the MSP results on the gasoline on the sweatpants.
That's correct.
And then you issued your report shortly after that.
Correct.
Okay. And the key, obviously, was the gasoline on the sweatpants.
That was an important piece of data.
No, that was the thing that lynched it for you, didn't it?
That was an important piece of data.
You know what a keystone is? Ever seen a keystone in an arch?
Bridge?
I'm aware of keystone architecturally, yes.
Yes, architecturally, and the keystone is the piece at the top, the single
Correct.
piece that holds the arch together.
Correct.
And then if it's removed, the whole arch falls.
Correct.
Okay. That was the keystone, wasn't it? For your opinion, gasoline.
Argumentative.
I'll allow it for cross.
Thank you.
Now they have to attack that keystone.
I would never use the word keystone. It was an important piece of
say never.
data.
Okay. Let's get back to the construction of the house. You didn't know the floor was nothing but OSB with some rugs on it, right?
I did not.
You didn't know there was exposed 2x4s around the framing, especially around the whole bay window area?
At the time of the investigation, I did not.
You didn't know there was a lot of other exposed wood?
Your Honor, can we take the...
Oh, sorry. Didn't even know I was doing it. Good, thank you.
Oops.
You didn't know there was a lot of exposed wood, uncovered, not drywalled, in that first floor, correct?
I did not.
And that certainly would add to the ability of a fire to spread, correct?
It would.
Because as you know, if it's a lot of drywall doesn't burn, right?
Correct.
Were you aware, sir, as you were trying to rule out these hypotheses, that there was no final electrical inspection?
I was not aware.
Were you aware that there was no final mechanical inspection?
I was not.
Were you aware that the house didn't even have a certificate of final occupancy?
I did not.
That'd be important data to know, right? In terms of evaluating electrical sources, mechanical, that kind of thing.
I did not have those information.
Pardon?
I did not have that information.
All right. Now, you said you ruled out electrical as being a possible cause of the fire, right?
Correct.
Electrical fires happen all the time in this country, don't they?
Correct.
I have one.
And they can happen behind the walls, right?
Yes.
And all of a sudden you have a sudden fire you didn't even know, right?
They happen in the walls.
Okay. You do not have expertise in electrical house wiring, do you?
I'm not a licensed electrician.
You are not an expert in the electrical wiring of a house, are you?
I am not.
I think it's been asked and answered, Your Honor.
You didn't?
It's a little different, but I'll allow it.
Go ahead.
I'm not.
Okay. And on September or January 8th, you didn't hire somebody to help you with the electrical examination, did you?
Your Honor, we approach.
State's mad, big mad. I know they've got a lot of things they want to go to on redirect, which will probably be after lunch, the way things are going right now. But defense has to attack this witness hard, and they are, and they're getting some ground. They're making some headway, but I'm not sure if the jury's discredited this witness or any of his conclusions yet. The wiring was a bit charred, teensy bit. It was cooked. What headway? Just getting him to admit that he should have done things differently.
You ever heard of the phrase, know what you don't know?
Yes.
Smart to know what you don't know and stay in your lane. You ever heard of that phrase?
Correct. Yes, I've heard it.
That applies to attorneys.
Now, you don't have evidence, physical evidence of any ignition source, do you?
Physical evidence? No, there's no physical evidence of an ignition source.
Okay.
Well, there is physical evidence of a potential ignition source. That's the fireplace.
And candles.
And candles.
Which you would have to rule out according to the scientific method.
Correct.
By collecting data.
Correct.
You didn't collect data about the candles in your inspection, did you?
I did. The data for the candles were statements about the candles.
That they
existed.
Okay. They were open flames.
Correct.
And one open flame was candles, right?
Correct.
One open flame was a fuel lamp, correct?
I don't know.
You don't remember that?
I don't know the fuel lamp.
Okay. And one open flame was a fireplace.
Correct.
You don't know which of those open flames were involved in this fire, do you?
I don't know of which open flame is involved in the ignition.
Or any of them.
Or any of them.
Okay.
Well,
and you certainly don't know. Well, let's talk about the gasoline on the pants. The gasoline on the sweatpants that tested positive, you said was a very, very important part of your conclusion.
I don't think I used that many varies. I think I just said important.
Okay.
Or
very important? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. In fact, sir, you have no opinion on how long the gasoline had been on his sweatpants. Is that true?
That is correct.
Because you don't know where he was when he got gasoline on.
Correct.
You don't know when it happened in terms of what day.
I do not know when the gasoline got on the pants.
You don't know how it got there.
I do not know how the gasoline got on his pants.
You don't know how much gasoline was on his pants.
I do not know the exact amount of gasoline that went on his pants.
And you have no opinion as to how long it was on his pants, correct?
I have no opinion how long it was on his pants.
Therefore, you cannot rule out the logical possibility that it has nothing to do with this fire.
No.
Am I right?
No, you're not.
All right, let's back out. If you don't know how long the gasoline were on the pants, you don't know if he had gotten it on the pants a week before.
I know that the gasoline was on the pants.
100%.
At that time, I do not know when the gasoline got on his pants.
We don't know the last time the sweatpants were washed.
I'm sorry?
We don't know the last time the sweatpants were washed.
We do not.
Weren't washed in gasoline. But the fact that they were on fire.
But what you're doing is extrapolating, just saying he had gasoline on sweatpants, therefore gasoline must have been in the living room.
Because he was in the living room.
Okay.
And near the area of origin.
Do you have any explanation for why his sweatpants didn't catch fire if they had gasoline on them?
Saturated?
They may have been covered, like a blanket or something may have been over them. They may have been something pushed together so there's not oxygen. Do I know exactly why? No, I don't.
Okay, when you're saying they may have, you're speculating.
I'm offering a speculative opinion.
Okay. And as an expert witness, do you think offering a speculative opinion is appropriate?
Well, you asked.
It is an informative statement. I do not know. Go ahead.
Would you agree that experts should not speculate or guess?
Opinions should come from a body of knowledge.
A body of scientific knowledge based on the scientific method, right?
Body of knowledge.
And as we agreed, garbage in equals garbage out, right?
Correct.
So, if you're offering speculation as an opinion, what you're doing is misleading the jury, aren't you?
Very.
Sustained.
If you're offering speculation as an opinion, you're violating that.
It's asked and answered. It's asked and answered.
I didn't. It's a different question.
I think it's asked and answered.
Let's talk about that red gas can in the front yard. Oh, one thing. Let's go back. One thing that, in relying on Linda Stermer's statement that she was in the basement, she came upstairs, all of a sudden she saw the fire, right?
Correct.
Then she ran out of the house, right?
Correct.
And all the information you had that she was running around hysterical, correct?
Objection, that's passed on to evidence. Needs to testify to that, Your Honor.
Did you learn that from your...
Allow it with the foundation.
Thank you. Did you read Mr. Shinsky's statement of Linda Stermer?
Yes.
Okay. Did you read anything about what the witnesses said?
Correct. Yes, I did.
And they were describing her as hysterical, right?
There were some descriptions of that, yes.
Okay. So, given that information, you can't rule out the possibility that Linda Stermer was surprised by the fire when she saw it.
Objection, cause for speculation.
Fair? Based on the evidence he has.
Well, Your Honor, he's asking you to rule out Linda Stermer's surprise. How is he supposed to know how she reacted? He wasn't there.
I agree. It's cause for speculation. I'll sustain.
Okay. Let's talk about that red gas can that you picked up in the front yard. Remember that?
Yes.
Okay. You actually saw it the night before, didn't you?
I photographed, it was in a photograph the night before. I do not have an individual recollection if I took specific notice of it on the 7th.
If you thought it was important, you would have picked it up that night.
I don't know.
Well, you certainly know that in a potential crime scene, evidence can disappear, right?
Yes.
And as you testified earlier, you thought this might be a crime scene when you saw blood on the front bumper of the car, correct?
Correct.
That's why you took pictures, correct?
Correct.
And then, after that, you saw the gas can, but you didn't even pick it up.
I don't know if I saw the gas can or took notice of the gas can the evening of the 7th.
The next day, you picked it up, correct?
Correct.
Detective Rout, is she the one who pointed it out to you? Or she took a picture of it too?
I don't know if Detective Rout pointed it out to me or not.
Certainly possible that you wouldn't have even noticed it or thought of it important on the 8th.
I don't know what that question is.
You don't know how the gas can got there, correct?
I do not.
You don't know where the gas can was before it got there.
Correct.
You don't know who put it there.
Correct.
In fact, if I look at your photograph 116 in your package from B.
Nickelback song.
That's the gas can in the front yard, the picture you took, correct? Yellow stickers in the bottom right.
Yeah, B, what?
116.
116. There is no 116 in here.
It would be then in your, well, the picture here, do you remember taking that picture?
I do remember the picture.
Remember looking at that picture in direct exam?
Yes.
Okay, it shows the gas can.
It does.
Do you recall taking a picture of a more close-up picture?
Yes.
And if we see this picture,
there it is.
Close-up. See the gas can, it's all dirty and muddy?
I do.
And the spout is all muddy?
Correct.
And the rest of the spout is broken. The rest of the spout is to the left.
Correct.
As you sit here, sir, you have no idea if that gas can, 1 gallon gas can, has any connection to this fire, do you?
I do not.
Because to suggest that would be pure speculation on your part, correct?
Correct.
And would be intellectually dishonest if you suggested it, correct?
Correct.
In fact, if anybody suggested that a gas can had anything to do with this case, that would be misleading the jury, wouldn't it?
Sustain that objection, and it calls for speculation.
It's trying to make the jury not consider the gas can in their verdicts.
Give me 1 second here, Your Honor. I might be wrapping up.
That would be phenomenal.
Oh.
Never mind.
In order to arrive at your opinion that gasoline on the sweatpants means that it was there at the time of the fire, you're with me?
Correct.
You'd have to rule out that when any time period between the time of the fire and when you got there 3 hours later, gasoline could have transferred then.
Someone could have poured gasoline on him to put the fire out.
There was no evidence of that.
Okay, let's work through that real quick. Todd Stermer was found outside the house by neighbors, right?
Correct.
Neighbors, Matheny in particular, throws clothes on him, correct?
At some point, yes.
You finally learned later that it was Mr. Matheny's coat that had the gasoline, that tested positive for gasoline too, correct?
Later, I did learn that that was Mr. Matheny's coat that was sent to the lab.
You thought it was Todd Stermer's coat, but somebody mislabeled it, fair?
Somebody mislabeled it. I don't know if it was me or somebody mislabeled it.
Okay. So, you'd have to rule out the fact that maybe there was transfer of the gas from Matheny's coat to the sweatpants.
There was no indications of...
You would have to rule that out. That's a plausible theory.
Correct.
And that's why you do the whole scientific method.
Correct.
Then they transferred him in this dinghy boat called the John boat. Somebody describe it?
Yes.
And they transferred him to where he was finally found and workers worked on him, right?
Correct.
You would have to rule out that plausible scenario that maybe there was gasoline in that boat.
That was not a very plausible theory, but yes.
Okay. Even though you may not believe it, you still, as a scientific person, have to rule that out through the scientific method. True?
Correct.
Okay. So, and certainly, you know what expectation and confirmation bias is, right?
Yes.
NFPA cautions against that, correct?
Correct.
We talked about those as being a big no-no, right?
Have we?
Yes.
Previously, is that what you're
June?
saying? Yes.
Big no-no. Expectation bias is having an idea of what you think happened and then disregarding or ignoring evidence that doesn't fit, right?
Correct. It's not looking at all the data.
Confirmation bias is the flip side of the coin. Once you've arrived at a decision or an opinion, you ignore contradictory data, right?
Correct.
Both violate the scientific method, don't they?
Correct.
Because if you do receive new evidence, you have to then reevaluate. True?
Correct.
That's the proper way to do it.
Correct.
So, we have had testimony now that, and you smelled gasoline 3 hours later on Todd Stermer, right?
Correct.
Which led you to take the sweatpants.
Yes.
We've had testimony from 3 witnesses, Mike Matheny, Connie Calhoun.
I'm going to be objecting, Your Honor. I don't think he's aware of this testimony. He wasn't present in court to hear the testimony.
It's still setting him up.
question, Your Honor.
Maybe just do it more as a hypothetical.
Hypothetically, if 3 witnesses who were there, the first 3 people on the scene, said they didn't smell gasoline on Todd Stermer, you'd have to consider that, correct?
I wouldn't know what other people smelled or what they detected.
Have you told me in the past that you can't really consider that because sometimes people's memory are crazy when it's a stressful situation?
Oh, I never said the word crazy.
Not crazy. This was a chaotic situation, right?
Yes.
And when people are in chaotic situations, you've said that their memories aren't so good.
I don't recall saying that.
No.
We can.
Have you been trained as a Michigan State police detective or trooper detective on how to handle stressful situations?
I've had a lot of training. I don't know if anything specific on stressful situations.
Well, you do shoot training, don't you? Or didn't you?
I did.
So you can handle, if there's a shootout, handle the stressful situation, right?
Well, that's 2 different things when you're asking about handling stressful situations versus firearms training. That's two different things.
Okay. Have you had training, sir, to teach you how to deal with shootouts?
Objection has an answer, Your Honor.
And relevance.
Relevance.
Dances around the question. Relevance. It goes to how a trained professional might act in a chaotic situation versus a lay person.
Yeah, he might shoot someone.
Overrule it. I don't find it relevant.
You know, overrule the
I'm sorry,
objection.
sustain the objection.
Okay.
Overrule your question.
Even though you didn't necessarily believe that the boat could have transferred gasoline, there could have been gasoline in the boat that transferred to a sweat. You remember that?
Yes.
You still have to. You just told us you still have to analyze that as a plausible.
I don't remember this question,
Right.
so I'll allow it.
You don't have to, or you still have to analyze it via the scientific method, correct?
Consider the data.
Right. And which means you got to collect data.
Collect data.
About the boat.
Did you take
Correct.
a picture?
So you can analyze it.
Correct.
So you can develop a hypothesis.
Correct.
So you can test.
Testing the hypothesis and the analyzation of the data collected.
Okay. Did you take a rag and wipe anything on the boat?
I did not.
Okay, that would be data, right?
That would be a form of data.
Did you get any witness statement from Linda Stermer or her children about anything about gasoline in the boat?
I have seen statements from her children.
I'm talking about, you took a statement, yeah, you heard a statement from Linda Stermer, you read it.
Correct.
I'm talking about before January 12th, when you wrote your report.
I don't know what information was relayed to me by other detectives about, I don't know, I forget the question, about comments from the family? Is that what the question was?
About the boat, specifically about the boat.
I didn't, the only information I was told is the boat was used to transport Todd from near the house to his final location.
Okay. And you did not collect any data from any individuals about whether there was gasoline in the boat, correct?
Objection has an answer.
He said he mentioned Linda Stermer. I'm just asking him, anybody else?
Ask about the boys again. I can't remember. I think you asked about the boys as well?
He did.
Okay. You can ask that again, because I can't recall his answer.
Sir, you did not collect any data regarding the possibility of gasoline in the boat, correct?
Objection has an answer, Your Honor.
I asked about various
Sounds
sources.
like
I'm
a
wrapping
good
it up right
winding
now.
up question,
I'm
Mr.
wrapping
Miller,
it
so
up.
assuming it's a wind-up question, I'll allow it.
Thank you. True?
I did not.
Okay. Which means you can't analyze it, correct?
Your
You
Honor, object.
can't.
This is, it's really cumulative at this point, Mr. Mueller, so
Yes.
either move on or sit down.
If you didn't collect the
Look at that
evidence,
look.
you violated the scientific method with respect to that hypothesis, didn't you?
I've collected data from statements of people about the boat.
Before January 12th?
Not before January 12th.
Okay, and it's not in your report?
This is not in my report.
And it's never been in part of testimony, have it?
I don't recall if it's part of testimony.
And you didn't tell us about it this morning, did you?
No.
Okay. Give me 1 second to wrap up.
Do you see the look he gave her? He said either wrap up, move, or either move on or sit down. And he looked over and he looked back at the judge and gave a glare, just a glare at her. Police are going nuts outside my house for some reason.
So Leroy, let me just kind of wrap up and summarize what we talked about. You didn't take photographs of your excavation, right?
Objection, Your Honor. He's allowed to ask
I'm
and
just
answer. You don't
wrapping it up.
Asked and answered.
Do you believe, based on everything you did, that you properly documented your investigation?
Yes.
Do you believe that everything you did, you complied with all of the mandates of the scientific method?
Yes.
And NFPA 921, everything they say to do and don't do?
Yes.
No more questions, Your Honor. Give me a second for my housekeeping.
And then, counsel, you moved to admit just the one, the rest were demonstrative, correct?
I move to admit.
I think the scientific method one.
The scientific method was D.
That was D?
And A and B, his photographs.
Okay, so we got the photograph. We thought we heard an L.
L was previously admitted.
Oh, okay.
Let me.
Is that your understanding, Mr. Blair? So
Yeah, that sounds about right.
just
Is what we've gone through, Your Honor.
The scientific method one will admit, the others are demonstrative, other than the photos that were already admitted. Okay. Okay, thank you. So we'll take our lunch break, jury, and I'll have you come back at 1:15 to the jury room. Please, no media, no discussions with anyone.
There we go. While they go to lunch, wow, it got spicy. I don't have my replay machine set up to show you, like, this computer. I can't put on the other screen right now because I've got all my stuff put together for the gig I'm doing tomorrow night, which is a live stream in a parenting class. So after tomorrow, though, I'll have some more equipment that will make that all work. So I can't show you the look right now. You'll have to go back and watch it on replay. But there's a chance to do that because we're going to go to lunch here in just a moment. So that's not going to be a problem. We're going to be back. She says 1:15. We'll be back at 1. I've already got a portal set up to portal us over to the new stream. It's still going to be spicy. The state's going to come back up on redirect and try to clear this up. And you know there are going to be objections from the defense as they do that because they gained a little bit of ground, not a ton, but a little bit. And you know they're going to come in and want to just claw onto every little piece of traction they got, and it's going to get spicy. It's going to get good, so don't miss it. Tonight, when you go home, please hug the people you love, smile at someone, make their day just a little bit better, and please stay safe till we go live again after lunch, about 1 o'clock. About 1 o'clock. So it's about 3 minutes ago is what you want to rewind to catch it. But the look he gave the judge, when she says either move on or sit down, he did the double take and a glare. Oh, we've seen judges that would bring down the gavel on somebody for doing that. So anyway, all right, lunch is served. 6-volt has it all spread out for everybody. Grab some lunch. We'll see you after lunch. Have a good one. Bye bye.
Taking it easy. It's bigger than you. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than all of us.
front of the Walmart.